Well, good morning and welcome. It's a Saturday morning, only this time it will be slightly different today because it is the ballot instead of Breakfast Extra. But not to worry, we'll still have the same elements, have the same guests to talk about the Osun elections, which hold today. But first, today, as the people of Osun State will wake up, they'll dress up, they'll pick up their PVCs and head out to vote. And for most people, that is all an election should actually be. You choose the person you like, you vote, you go home. And of course, if you have been watching Osun politics, you know that this particular election has carried a little more baggage than the average election because Osun has been here for, well, many years now. They've been here before. In 2007, the election ended up at the Supreme Court. In 2018, there was another long legal battle, and in 2022, Adeleke won, lost the result at the tribunal, got back, and then the appeal court, and finally also had the Supreme Court confirm the victory. So in Osun, you don't just ask who won, you sometimes have to ask who won, according to which court. And that's the funny thing about it.
But what makes today's election worrying is that some of the trouble started before another body voted. There was the attack on an INEC PVC collection center in Okuku where PVCs were reportedly stolen. INEC has said those PVCs cannot be used for today's election. But think about what a PVC means to the ordinary person. It is your little plastic ticket to say, I have a voice. So when somebody steals it, they are not just stealing a card, they're interfering with someone's chance to be heard. And that is why the security of the election matters just as much as the counting of the votes.
Yes, indeed. Then there is the politics to consider. And Nigerian politics, being Nigerian politics, things have become very spicy. We had the viral video involving Senator Francis Fadonsi, where he appeared to tell APC supporters to kill Accord members. He later said that he meant kill Accord with votes. Now, I'm not sure what political dictionary he might be using or which one contains that particular sentence, but let's leave that alone. However, because during an election, words matter. When you're a politician, people listen to you. When supporters are already angry, afraid, and desperate to win, careless words can travel much faster than the person who said them intended. So your opponent is supposed to be defeated by your argument or by the ballot, not by a bullet.
Yeah, you're right. And there are already enough things making people nervous. There have been allegations of intimidation and vote buying. There are concerns about security. There is the fight over who can be trusted. And there is social media where one fake or alleged fake video can reach thousands of people before the truth has even put on its shoes. Now, President Tinubu has called for a free, fair, and peaceful election and urged voters to come out without fear. But his role will naturally be watched closely. He is the president. He is also the leader of the APC, and the APC wants Osun back. So whatever happens today will be judged not only as an Osun story, but as part of the bigger political picture ahead of 2027.
But here is where I think we sometimes miss the point. We're already talking about 2027, which is, well, a little a ways. Politicians are thinking about 2027. Political analysts are thinking about 2027. Social media is also thinking about 2027. Meanwhile, there's a man in Osun who just wants the road outside his house to get fixed. There's a woman who wants the school her children attend to actually teach them. There's a young man who wants jobs. There are traders who want to make enough money today to feed her family tonight. And these people are not voting today to send a message to 2027. They are voting today because it is their own lived realities. And sometimes we forget that elections are not really about politicians. They are about ordinary people, giving politicians permission to make decisions that affect their lives.
And that is why the process must be trusted, because whoever wins today will not just need a certificate of return, they will need a legitimacy. The voter needs to believe that the vote was counted. The candidate needs to believe the process was fair. The losing party needs to believe that even though it lost, the system did not cheat it. And the winner needs to be able to say, I won because the people choose me, not because somebody was stronger, not because somebody was more violent, not because somebody had better thugs, but because the people chose them.
And this brings us to something we don't talk about enough. When we say somebody has stolen an election, most people actually imagine ballot boxes getting disappeared. But an election can be damaged without anybody touching a single ballot. You can frighten someone away from the polling unit. You can steal a PVC. You can threaten a party agent. You can spread a fake result or even a fake video. You can tell people that their votes won't count. And if you do enough of that, well, people may simply stop believing in the process. That is the difference here. And it's a different kind of election, a different kind of election theft. You're not stealing the votes. You're stealing people's faith that their votes matter. And once you steal that, you have a much bigger problem than bad elections.
Well, because democracy depends on one simple belief, Mazino. My vote counts is what people are saying. If people stop believing that, why would they bother to vote? Why would they trust the result? Why would they accept the winner? And of course, why would they believe the next election will be any different? So today's election is not just a test for the candidates. It is a test for INEC. It is a test for the police, security agencies, the political parties. And in many ways, it is a test for all of us.
Yes, indeed. Final take here. Maybe the big question, if you want to ask, who will win Osun? Maybe it is the question we should be asking is, can we produce a winner that everybody can actually believe? And that's the difference. Because you can win an election and still lose the people. You can get the certificate and you can still have everybody asking questions. And you can also lose an election without having to lose your dignity. So today, our hope is that the voter votes. Let INEC count, let the security agencies protect people, not political interests. Let the politicians compete. And if you lose, take the evidence to court. Not your boys, not your thugs, your evidence. Because the man standing beside you at the polling unit may be voting for the person you hate, but he's still your neighbor, and he still has to live in Osun tomorrow. And so do you. That's the part politicians sometimes forget, that after the election, we still have to live together. So let Osun speak today, let the votes be counted, let the winner win, let the loser lose with dignity, and for once, let the people be more important than the politicians fighting over them. Thank you very much. Once again, you are welcome this morning. It's the ballot for a Saturday morning as we are going to be observing the elections inside of the gubernatorial elections inside of Osun State with our correspondents all across the cities and also the villages to help us monitor, observe, and bring back detailed, well, point of view observation of how the elections will carry out from the start today up until the end. We'll do a continuation for tomorrow. Once again, good morning and welcome for Saturday morning here. Observation for the ballot Osun gubernatorial elections. My name is Mazino Appeal, and of course, Queen, are you excited about today?
Well, I'm just happy that today is August 15. Let us know and let's just get it over with. The past few weeks, we've been talking about Osun State election. Yes, my name is Queen Celestine.
Oh, there we go.
And of course, I am the co-host for Breakfast Extra. This is a special occasion. Of course, we'll be here for 5 hours having to discuss, deliberate, talk about, the policies, the works of the security agencies. We heard that they have about 25,000 personnel in Osun State.
There's the police, there's the different security.
DIGs, commissioners, and all whatnot, just for Osun State. And I heard that, they added the SDP?
The SDP, that's the party, that's one of the parties.
August 12th. So the question is, how much did INEC spend to, reprint the papers and everything? They said they were already ready. So all those little conversations is going to be happening right here. But before we dive into the headlines, the papers and everything.
Yes, let's take a look at some of the names for today. Osun 2006 governorship candidates, Ademola Adeleke, of course, the incumbent governor of Osun State. Former senator representing Osun West. He's seeking re-election, and that's a big deal because he is trying to prove to the people, look what I am doing.
Let me finish
another 4 years, let me finish it. So that's a very interesting stance to have. Bola Oyebamiji, by the way, is a banker, economist, administrator, and former Osun Commissioner for Finance and former Managing Director of the CEO of NIWA, that's National Inland Water Agency, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong.
Of course, you have Najim Salam, who's the former Speaker of the Osun State House of Assembly, an experienced politician. I like the fact that they're all coming from a position in Osun State. It's like, oh, we've seen the loopholes, we can help fix it. So let's see if, that will translate in the vote. And we have Waju Fariloye, who is from the Action Alliance, and he's listed among the younger candidates in the race.
Esther Olajide, African Action Congress candidate, entrepreneur, geographer, and also one of the youngest contenders here. Interestingly, most people see this as a two-horse race, but I want to correct that it's actually not. Most people talk about just the two big names there, and that's Adeleke and Oyebamiji. But the funny thing about these two is that there's history behind their back and forth that has to do with the politics of Osun State, that has to do with the security of Osun State, who runs Osun State, who runs Osun State, or who ran Osun State.
And who has backing.
And who has backing. Speaking about backing, it's a very interesting dynamic here because Najim Salam was former Speaker of the Osun State House of Assembly, and he knows the terrain. But it's a very interesting thing because he's coming from an APC background with Eric Bashola, if I'm not mistaken. Bola Oyebamiji, of course, representing APC. You should understand that there's federal might behind him. So he's going to be trying to prove something from before when the mandate was taken away from the APC. They're trying to get it back. Yeah,
but his relationship with Oyetola.
You guys remember what we did from before? You have to give us a chance now because we're going to try and do that again. On the other hand, and much more interesting, is the Accord Party candidate who's the incumbent governor, Ademola Adeleke. And this is where it gets really interesting. Because not only is he the incumbent, which gives him some credit here, he also has a very interesting influence backing him. Not just that he is with the people, not just that he's very familiar with them. His counterparts see him as a very unserious governor because they call him the dancing governor.
Well, of course, because he's Davido's uncle.
But guess what that does for you? It draws you closer to the people. It makes you human. So that's a very big influence.
I agree with you, but then again, let's ask, will his popularity translate to votes?
Well, that's not the end of his
That's
popularity.
what we're going to find out. And of course, he's coming from PDP, and we don't have PDP on the ballot this year. So they're like, oh, does this mean that he's taking everybody from PDP? All these questions, I would like to know the answers.
We will find out before the end of today.
Yes.
One small dynamic I want to point out here about his influence, and I mean Adeleke now, is not just that he is coming from off the PDP that is absent from the ballot this year. Maybe he'll bring some of that structure and influence with him. We can't tell. But if he doesn't, he also still has another influence going for him, and that is the international influence. That's the youth influence, courtesy of guess who? David Adeleke. So it's a very interesting dynamic here because you have to watch out and see how much this influences the youth votes.
Well,
whether they will come out, whether the social media chatter will actually translate into
good question. Thank God we have our guests to answer all these questions. If not, Mazina is going to do all the answering for us. But let's go on a short...
I can't. I will not be able to. I'm not the expert.
Let's go on a very short break. When we return, we dive right into the activities of the Osun State elections. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Still the ballot for this morning here. Osun decides today as they go to polls to choose who will lead the next governor for Osun State. Very interesting race, this one, because, well, of course, it comes from history, legal histories, and much more. Let's talk about security today. Let's talk about the votes, the voters, the turnouts, the PVCs, the missing ones, those that have been collected, and what it means for a final result as we take a look at the elections, the off-cycle elections for Osun State. A very decisive one as Osun State is being, well, it's embroiled in very interesting situations from left, right, and even center. But first of all, let's begin our substantive conversation this morning by stepping back from all the polling units and also looking at the bigger picture here. Each election is about, well, much more than just the ballot. It's also about the issues, it's about the fears, it's about the expectations, and also about the political history that brings voters to that ballot box. And Osun has had a very interesting electoral history, with elections often attracting intense political competition and court orders at the end. And this election has also been accompanied by concerns around political threats, voter intimidation, vote buying, violence. So I guess it's time for us to introduce our very first guest for today.
Yes, of course, this conversation is going to kick off with Mr. Ekujumi, who's the CEO and founder of TAF Africa. And we'll also be having Emmanuel Ologun, who is the Executive Director of Socio-Economic and Civic Rights Advocacy. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning. Mr. Jake has already soothed us, saying that Mazino is this guy, Joe is this guy, I'm this girl. I haven't seen him in a bit, but it's good to have him on.
Good
and of course, Emmanuel, we've spoken to you through the course of the week. It's great to have the both of you here. While I'm the first girl, I'll just let Mazino start with the first question.
Well, if you meant ladies first by that, I'm not very pleased with you, Queen, but it's okay. Mr. Jacob Hele, let's talk about this. The history behind the Osun politics is a very interesting one. From being declared governor to, well, that being taken away from 2 consecutive governors, if I'm not mistaken, the off-cycle resulting in that, as we see us here today looking at an off-cycle election that's 3 years outside of the ordinary. What can you tell us we should look out for when it comes to the votes today? Are we going to see a situation where this might also end up in court, as we've seen in elections from before? What do you think, Mr. Ekbele?
Well, let me start by saying that Osun is not just choosing a governor today. It is Nigeria that is putting its electoral system on trial. This is one of the most important, if not a consequential election before 2027. And so what happens today in Osun determines what will look like the picture of what to come in 2027. So it's very important to take into cognizance what makes for a true electoral integrity, electoral processes, and outcome. Hopefully, the politicians will let the people choose whosoever that they want. So we are monitoring South Africa. We're deploying 150 observers across the country and across the state. You will say that that's a far cry, taking into cognizance the over 3,000 polling units and over 30 local government councils that we have, local government areas that we have. We are a little bit strategic in terms of our deployment. Of course, our deployment also includes 25 sign language interpreters. We were very strategic, but very, very, very cautious in our deployment strategy, because we deploy based and guided by data science. So we're not deploying everywhere. We're deploying where we know there are clusters of persons with disability in disaggregated manner. That means where we know there are persons with albinism, persons who are blind, persons who are deaf, Down syndrome, small persons. So we're guided by data science in terms of our deployment. And so that is why we have that number, which is not a very large number. But we're also interested in what happens in other polling units, so that we'll be able to do accurate reporting, not only for stations like yours, but also for our funding partners. You know, so it's going to be a very interesting election. Accreditation, I'm sure, has started, and where it has not started, it will soon begin. Of course, we will have vote counting, electronics upload, collation, and eventual declaration of results. All of this will tell whether we are actually learning from previous election. On paper, there are reasons for caution, optimism. So we have just about 1.9 million voters that are eligible to participate. Voting is expected across 3,763 polling units in the 30 local government area. INEC has deployed beavers, technology, and substantial backup capacity, while an extensive security architecture has been put in place. There are figures that we're hearing in some cases 25,000 or more than that. But the elections are not judged by preparedness on paper. They are judged by the experience of the voters, whether it's going to be credible, whether they'll be allowed to vote. And of course, the media will play a critical role in this election. I like the barrage of media outlets and reporters across the state. And by the way, I'm not surprised. My good friend Akintemi and his team, and all my girls on set, and boys and guys on set, you guys are making us proud because you're bringing real-time reportage to the homes of Nigeria. You are part of a democratic process. And what would happen without the presence of the media? So we therefore have to watch whether polling officials and materials will arrive on time, whether beavers will function consistently, whether voters can cast their ballots without fear and intimidation, whether the security will play their neutrality, vote trading, whether vote trading will happen without stock exchange.
Stock exchange. Mr. Epele, Mr. Epele, I want to jump in there and talk about something that you talked about. First of all, thank you for the laurels that you've awarded all of us here at News Central. We try our best. But, sir, let's also talk about the fact that you spoke about democracy. And I want to talk about the currency for democracy here. Osun State has had a very interesting history with litigation. And litigation is a democratic tool, whether you like it or not. If I'm disputing the outcome of an election, I should take it to court instead of resorting to other means, violence or other sorts. But here, litigation is, while it's a great tool, we also see it's disturbing certain dynamics when it comes to electoral processes. It ends up in court. We no longer decide the governors from the polls. It doesn't seem like the people actually have their votes count. Now they turn to courts. And this has happened 2 times, and it's caused very interesting dynamics to the processes inside of Osun State. So I'm wondering what your take is on the fact that while litigation is a democratic tool, at what point does it become unhealthy? Or does it work to strengthen democracy?
Well, that's an interesting question. By the way, I just want to say that I am not here alone. I have my team, and everybody is in this polling booth and trying to make things happen. And I'm so blessed that I have two lovely ladies, all of them getting ready for this process. But let me say to you that I am concerned about the role judiciary and some form of unhealthy interventions that we find in our judicial system when they meddle in a democratic process. That's very disturbing. For instance, the late introduction of these candidates, which is his right, though, but could it have come a little bit earlier than when it came? I know that someone will argue with me that justice delay is justice denied. But then there's a saying that the time is always right to do what is right. That said, I think the judiciary needs to be a little bit proactive and circumspect of their role, because that introduction have disrupted this process, whether anybody likes it or not. Let me sort of like give your viewers some analysis of the implication of that very late judicial pronouncement. Take, for instance, the entire process, the entire printing of all the electoral materials with the name of candidates by INEC was totally discarded, absolutely thrown into the waste bin. Money gone down the drain simply because that pronouncement came late. INEC had to go into a panic mode of reprinting all the materials Now, it doesn't stop at that. It also affects logistics because they will print, package, and then transport. And that's why many of them did not sleep yesterday and day before yesterday, as soon as that pronouncement was made. So you find a situation where a lot of money will be spent, transportation, trying to push for the deployment of these materials. And of course, INEC staff overworked because they have to go into what it takes to distribute those materials. There's assurances, though, that the materials have been properly disseminated and that it will not disrupt the process. That's an assurance that gives confidence to the process. However, nobody is sure whether that is absolutely correct. Although, in fairness to INEC, they were honest enough to bring in cameras. And so we saw on television the distribution of these resources, but hopefully what happens to this morning would further validate whether it is true that these resources have been distributed, and not just distributed, but distributed to where it is needed this morning. So if the polls opens at 8:30, as they have assured us, then we know that they have done a good job. And if this happens, this will be a thumbs up for INEC because it shows they are prepared for crisis management. It would further instill confidence in the electorate and in the process. And of course, we will be here to talk about it and give kudos to INEC if we have to, but also kudos to the process because we are looking forward for credible election.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ekmele. Now, Emmanuel, as a voter this morning, let's leave the politicians aside. As a voter this morning who's going out to vote, what would you say the issues are? What should they determine before they vote this morning? Can you tell them that, decide and think about these issues before you fix your fate?
Well, it is good morning once again.
Morning.
What electorates should determine, number one, electorates should not be blind about who they are voting for. Does the person really have the capacity to transform their lives and to transform the life of the state? At this point, everybody should leave aside politics, but everybody should be more considerate, put more consideration over their life and their existence, because when a bad leader come into leadership, for the next 4 years, their life will be on a pause. So that is why we have been telling the electorate not to collect money from politicians, to take the right decision that is expected of them on election day. That is that. Two, our organization has always been telling party agents through our social media campaign that for us to have a perfect election, we must also ensure that we put the beavers to test. So part of what we have told people is that when they get to vote, they should make sure that the beavers has a zero accreditation before they are going to start making accreditations at the accreditations of electorate at the polling units. So these are the two areas, and we have also made people understand that after their votes, if the environment is secure, let them wait, and after that, let them move from the polling unit to the collation center to ensure that their votes are being protected.
Right. Of course,
Thank you.
Emmanuel, this election, of course, has generated different conversations from, the former governors down to, the present governor in terms of, personalities. Now, would you say that, the personalities in Osun is overshadowing the issues in Osun State?
Yes, when you look at Osun State, I've always been saying it. Osun State is a state that is of people who are politically conscious. And everybody, virtually every electorate and those who will be coming out today, has already pitched their tent with a particular candidate. So in this election, personality matters. Who is your godfather? Who is the person that brought you into the race? So a lot of consideration. A lot of people claimed that APC, that former Governor Oyetola is the one who had introduced the candidate of the APC. So it's a personality on his own, while the governor itself, people looked at it that he is from a dynasty that wants to hold on to power and continue to control the state. So a lot of indices and personalities are put into consideration in this election.
Well, Emmanuel, the governor is saying that Governor Adeleke is asking voters to judge him for the 4 years he has been in office. What measurable indicators should we use to determine, if an incumbent deserves another 4 years?
Now, you see, the dynamics in Osun as we speak is this. For over years, a lot of people have not experienced, a lot of citizens have not experienced the kind of roads network we have got during the time of Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola. We have seen a lot of bridge constructions, but the kind of flyover that is being seen in the centers. And there are a lot of communities, rural areas, where roads networks have been constructed, which a lot of people are happy about, who are farmers, that whenever they go to farm, their products get back to they are able to transport their goods. So he had done his best that he could do, and the people themselves are so delighted with him on the ground that he had made them see what road networks should be, connecting the state to the local government, connecting roads together. This is one of the best thing and best program of the governor. So a lot of people, and there's something I've always been said, when providence is with you, a lot of people developed love. A lot of Osun people developed loving him. They appreciate him, and that is part of the grace the Adeleke himself is enjoying as we speak.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ologun. I'd just like to let the viewers know that what you're looking at on your screens now are actually live feeds from Ejigbo local government in Osun State. We have our correspondent, Ololade, who is there and will be bringing us details of what's happening. But we can see that the voters are already lining up. It's very early, and it's very encouraging to see that there are people out there already. One very interesting thing to note is that when it comes to the number of voters in Osun State, especially those PVCs that were collected, the majority of them were actually collected by women. So that's also one of the indices that could decide who gets to be governors today. Who exactly do they appeal to or for? You talk about maybe the market women. You talk about perhaps maybe the fact that these are people who are in the civil service, but women are a big consideration for the elections today, as well as students and people who are within the age gap of 35, if I'm not mistaken, to about 45, or even earlier than that. So we'll be talking about all these dynamics. But one very interesting dynamic I want to talk to you, Mr. Emmanuel Ologun, about now is the level of influence that each of these candidates bring. Let's take a look at the first three, the big three. And I'm talking Oyedekun-Alli, I'm talking Adeleke, and I'm also talking about Najim. First of all, for the APC candidate, let's note that he has that federal might behind him. Whether you like it or not, there is that influence that brings to the table. The APC is also trying to reclaim Osun State, trying to remind people that this was our state before and we did very well for them. You spoke about that when you talked about Aregbesolala's influence while he was governor as well. But speaking about that influence is the fact that the ADC candidate is also sort of like is also influenced by that previous APC stance that they had over the state, because he also served under the governor back then, Aregbesola. So there might be that influence is bringing into the ADC this time. And the most interesting one is the Accord Party candidate, who is the incumbent governor Adeleke currently. Now, how much of the PDP structure, the PDP, by the way, are not on the ballot this year, but how much of that PDP structure and influence would he be bringing to the polls? So, Mr. Ologun, do you think, or what do you think about these dynamics? Mr. Ologun, while you're thinking about the answer to that, how these influence will work into today's polls, I want us to talk to our correspondent, That is Omolola, who is in Ejigbo local government area, and that's where we're seeing these visuals from.
Yes, Omolola, good morning. Can you give us an update what's happening there? From the visual we can see we have elderly people come out very early to vote. Can you tell us the materials getting to the place? Do we have the INEC officials there? What's going on?
Yes, we are presently at, Ward 4 at the Unit 4 in Ejigbo Local Government, Ward 10, Unit 4 in Ejigbo Local Government area. And as you can see, many voters are already out to cast their vote. However, not any INEC official has arrived this polling unit. Many of them have just come out to stay here and, to wait to cast their vote. But when we were coming, before we got to Ejigbo local government area, we had gone to other units like Egbedore and others. Many of them are out. Some, have their INEC officials ready, while some others are still waiting like this. But here in Ejigbo local government area, there is, many people are outside here waiting, but no INEC official has arrived. Good morning.
Morning.
You're here to vote. Can you look at the camera, please?
Okay, this camera. My name is Karim Joyolade.
Karim. It's it's almost 8 o'clock and no INEC official is here and you're ready to vote. What do you have to say?
At least people have been here since the morning, but we've been waiting for the INEC officers, but we've not seen any one of them.
What time is the vote expected to start here today?
So I think it should be 8 a.m. 8 a.m.
Almost 8 a.m. and no INEC official is here. What's your expectation about today's voting?
So my expectation is that we are expecting the INEC to do the right thing. So that means our vote should be counted.
Thank you very much. I'll move to another, voter to hear what our opinion. Eka Roma. Kilo Rukoyima.
Mrs. Oyedemi Temitokweni.
Oyeka Diboleni, Amon, àwọn èèyàn ti jáde, àmọ́ àwọn INEC official wọn ti dé kílẹ̀ resource.
A ṣì ń retí wọn báyìí. A ṣì ń retí wọn. So we are still expecting them and we know they will eventually come.
But voting was supposed to start at 8, and it's almost 8 o'clock. None of them is here. What's your reaction?
We are still going to wait for them until they come because we know today is today.
Thank you very much. So many of them have said that they are ready to vote, that even though the INEC officials are not here, they are going to wait because they got here as early as, some of them have been here as early as 6:30, 7 a.m. And they would wait until the INEC officials, the ad hoc staff arrive here. And, they are pretty optimistic that they are voted. They will vote today and their vote will be counted. It's back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Omolola. I don't want to let you go just yet. I wanted to ask about Ejigbo itself. As we know, Ejigbo is actually the hometown of the ADC candidate, and that is Najim Salam. I'm wondering what you have tested when it comes to the people's preference there. Do you see a tilt toward this candidate? It's a very interesting LGA because this is the first test of the entire election, whether it's between Aregbesol's old influence or Najim's current influence. So what have you seen from the people? Where do you think their inclination lies?
Yes, like you said, Ejigbo is where the ADC candidate is. In fact, we were added to his own polling unit now, but we thought to stop over here. So I think many of them are going to, they said they are going to vote for him because, of course, he's from here. And with the backing of Aregbesola, like you mentioned, many of them are going to, focus on that. Use that as a backing to vote for their favorite candidate, which, of course, from their hometown, from what I gathered from them.
Thank you very much, Omolola. We also have Ni Amoni, who is in Ayodeji local government area. Ni, good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning as we observe the Osun gubernatorial elections. Please do tell us what it is you have noted today from Ayodeji. I hope I got that right. LGA, do correct me if I'm wrong, Ni.
It's understandable. I was also corrected in terms of the pronunciation once I got here. This is Unit 4, Ward 6, St. Michael, Ayodeji local government area. And even coming from Ede South, one of the things we have observed is that INEC officials had gotten there as early as 7:13. But let's quickly speak with the presiding officer of this place and even know how many registered voters we have at this particular unit. I'll quickly. Good morning to you. Please, how many registered voters do we have here?
We have 739.
799.
I think.
39.
Yeah.
Around 37. Around what time did you get here? And is everything you need here?
Yes, we have everything we need here. Yes.
What about?
Yes, it's around 7 o'clock. 6:30, 7 o'clock. That's when we have been here.
Okay. What about materials for persons with disabilities? Do you also have them here?
We have everything here.
You have everything?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Just as you hear on the part of INEC, they are ready. I'll quickly speak with some of the electorates we have on ground. Ekara, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, sir. Awesome. Since when have you been here, and once you got here, what did you observe?
I've been here about 30 minutes ago.
Okay.
And since I'm here, I can see that everything is peaceful. We are all preparing for the election, to which I believe that it will go well. No problem.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, what about you? How many police officers did you see on ground when you got here? Was INEC here when you got here, and what time?
Okay, I'm here for about 20 minutes to this time. The INEC and the party agent and everybody are on ground, and the atmosphere is peaceful. Right. And I believe it will be peaceful throughout. Right. And victories will be awesome in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you very much. And let me move from the male, so you don't think it's only the men that are here. We also have the women, some of them even aged, that have also left their homes this morning to come here. I'll speak in Yoruba and I'll interpret in English today. Mommy Karoma. Mommy, Ereka bere pẹ̀lú ọmọdún mélòó ni tẹ́ ní ẹ gbọ́dọ̀ dìbò lé ní Ereka bere pẹ̀lú ọmọdún mélòó ni ná?
Tó ogún márùn àti méjìlá.
Àwọn tó gbọ́ Yorùbá jù bẹ́ẹ̀ kí ni ẹ jẹ́? That's 100. 125. 125. Inú oṣù kẹta ló pé, that is March. Mommy, kí ni ìdí tẹ́ ṣe sọ pé èní pẹ̀lú bẹ́ ṣe dàgbà tó yìí ẹ gbọ́dọ̀ wá síbí wá dìbò lénìí?
Ẹ̀yin náà lọ́mọ mi. Wọ́n ní tá a bá dìbò, wọ́n ní lọ síwájú ni. Ńjọ́ tí wọ́n tẹ̀ ń sọ, mo ní bí n bá ti kú ilé tó mọ́ ń kọ́. Wọ́n ní ò lè tí ì kú. Ikú ló kù tí ń retí.
Hello, so just as Grandma said, she's about 125 years old, according to confirmation of what she said in Yoruba here. And she decided that she would vote irrespective of anything. What if she doesn't wake up tomorrow? That's her statement. Let me speak to more people. Mommy Ejekabere. Yes, ma. Omodumelo ni ma.
Ọmọ ọgọ́rin ọdún.
Ọgọ́rin. Ogún mẹ́rin. That is 40. No, 80 years. Mẹ́rin. 80 years. Kí ni ìdí tẹ́ ṣe sọ pé léni ẹ gbọ́dọ̀ wá pẹ̀lú pé ṣe dàgbà tó àwọn èèyàn máa rò pé àwọn ọ̀dọ́ ló yẹ kó tún wà níbí? Kí ni ìdí tẹ́ ṣe sọ pé gbọ́dọ̀ wá léni?
Mo ronú pé kọ́mọ mi ó lè dá lẹ́yìn ọ̀la, kọ́mọ mi ó débi gíga. Ọmọ torí ọmọ lèmi ṣe wá lónìí, torí kọ́mọ mi ó débi gíga kó dépò ńlá ni mo ṣe wá lónìí.
I'm sure if I go through this reel from 125 years old to 80 years old, I'm sure I'll get even deeper and steeper ages here. This is an aged woman who have decided, she mentioned that she's here because of her children, and because of that, she has to cast her votes today. Let me try to get someone younger. Let's see if we can speak to someone younger. Uncle, sorry, we must stop enjoyment. Okay. Kini ìdí tí ẹ ṣe sọ pé gbọ́dọ̀ dìbò lẹ́ni àti pé àtìgbà ọlẹ́ ti wà ń bí?
Mo ti wà ń bẹ̀ látàárọ̀. Ìdí tí mo lè fi wá dìbò lẹ́ni àwa náà Ọlọ́run jẹ́ ká náà débi gíga. Torí à ń pèsè rí olórí báyìí ni Ọlọ́run jẹ́ ká pèsè mí náà lágbára Ọlọ́run. So ìdí nìyẹn. Mo dẹ̀ jẹ́ ọmọ ọgbọ̀n ó lé méjì, that is 2 years. Ọjọ́ orí mi lẹ́nu.
Ọ̀pọ̀nbélé ni. Ẹ jẹ́ ká sọ̀rọ̀ nípa àwọn tó ń ṣe nípa INEC àti kí làwọn kan tí ẹ rí nígbà tẹ́ kọ́kọ́ dé.
Okay, everything is going in good order.
All right.
And inú mi dẹ̀ dùn lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ because on many places there is no love, there is no anything there. But now we are sharing love together. So there is nothing there, there is nothing bad. So I really appreciate Nigeria, and I really appreciate the state of government of Osun.
Thank you very much. Well, I can go. We have different cadres of ages here, from the young to the old, from 30 to the highest, which is 125 I've seen so far. They've been here, they're waiting, they want to cast their votes. They don't want to be disenfranchised. And some of them have various reasons, from voting because of their children, some voting because of their future. We keep moving to other polling units to give you updates.
I wanted to know, I like the spectrum of people that you spoke with, the aged and the young, and yes, you did interrupt that guy's enjoyment. But I want to know what these different demographics of people, what their preference are. Have you been able to find out what the old people actually want from their next governor, what the young people actually want from their next governor, what the influences are from these different demographics?
Well, let me not speak for them because I have them here. So why speak for them? But I'll ask one more person. Mommy, ẹ jẹ́ kí n sáré béèrè lọ́wọ́ yín. Kí ni àwọn ìwà àbí ìṣe tí ẹ fẹ́ kí ẹni tó máa jẹ́ adarí yín kó ní kẹ́ tó lè dìbò fẹ́ni náà?
Rere ni mo fẹ́ fún o. Mo fẹ́ rere fúnra mi sì fẹ́ fún náà. Kí orílẹ̀-èdè kó jọba. Mo fẹ́ fún. Kí gbogbo òtúbà kó tú sẹ́. Nǹkan dé gbogbo wa lọ́rùn ni mo fẹ́.
So gómìnà tó bá lè ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ ni ẹ máa dìbò fún. Adarí tó bá lè ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ lẹ máa dìbò fún.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni.
According to her, she's saying that someone who is going to let there be peace in the land, someone who creates good economy for the land, that is the criteria she will use to cast a vote for the person. I don't have... Okay, Mommy. Kí ni àwọn ìwà àbí ìṣe àbí nǹkan tí ẹni tí ẹ fẹ́ kó di gómìnà gbọ́dọ̀ ní kẹ́ tó lè dìbò fún?
Tọ́gbọ́lọ̀ ni.
Ọpọlọ.
Ọgbọ́lọ̀ ni ọpọlọ. Ọgbọ́lọ̀ ni ọgbọ́n. Ọgbọ́lọ̀ ni òye. Àti ìbẹ̀rù Ọlọ́run.
All right. Well, wisdom, knowledge, and of course character. Those are the criteria she feels whoever she will vote for as a leader must have. Back to you, Ms. Zido.
For that, I'm actually just enjoying hearing different dialects. It's just very exciting to hear from the aged women there. Of course, we will come back to you during the course of the day to find out how the voting is going. Now let's go to our other correspondent, Mercy Babajide, who is in Ede North. Right, Ede North is the Governor Ademola Adeleke's voting, or rather polling unit. Mercy, go ahead and give us an update. What's happening there? Is the INEC, are they present there? Is everything set to commence the voting?
Good morning to you there in the studio, where we are at Abogunde Compound Unit 9, Ward 2 of Eden North. And the total number of registered voters for this polling unit is 1,082 people. And contrary to the opinion that people will not come out to vote, I'd like my camera guy to pan and show you the crowd present here. We have every presence. And still, the fact that we still have opposite us another polling unit is quite overwhelming. But then that's not just the catch. Earlier on, we saw the attendance book. Right now, the security personnel are signing the attendance book. We also have seen APC, AAC's party agents present. But then let's take one from someone here. Ekaro, sir.
Ekaro.
Yes, sir. Esumami. Emma Bonrisa. Ekaro, sir.
Ekaro.
Báwo lẹ ṣe rí ètò ìdìbò báwo lẹ ṣe rí sí láàárọ̀?
A dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run, a rí pé ó ti ń bẹ̀rẹ̀ dáadáa báyìí, ó sì ń lọ ní ìrọwọ́rọsẹ̀. Ọlọ́run jẹ́ kí ó lọ báyìí títí di ìrọ̀lẹ́.
Okay, sir. Ìgbà time wo lẹ dé bí láàárọ̀?
Mo ti wà níbí báyìí láti 6 a.m.
Well, we got here around 7:30, and when we got here, the place was filled up already, and we are, of course, had INEC agents doing their jobs. That's not the catch, the heavy presence once again, because I'm sure everybody's concern was voter apathy because of all the threats going on. People were scared that most persons will not come out. And then something peculiar to note also is the inclusion. We have aged people here who I'm going to be panning to. It looks like the voting exercise is about to start. We currently have election observers, security personnel are present here, and those are the INEC officials, of course, doing their job. And then signing the attendance register is one of the election observer for the Osun State gubernatorial election. And something to note too is the fact that this is Governor Ademola Adeleke's polling unit. This is where the governor is going to be exercising his voting rights. The name of the polling unit is Abogunde Compound Unit 9, Ward 2 in Eden North. And once again, the number of people we are expecting here will be 1,082 for this particular polling unit. Then opposite also, we equally have another polling unit where I would be moving to see what is going on there. Sorry, excuse me. We have another polling unit just across the governor's polling unit, and we have to find out what is going on. Ẹ káàárọ̀ sà. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́ kí lorúkọ bí sà?
Orúkọ bí ni
Kí lorúkọ bí sà?
Sagba Abogunde Ward 2.
Ward 2 lélẹ̀. Okay.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
Okay sir. Ibẹ̀ ni gómìnà ti máa dìbò àbí?
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
Okay, kí ló dé tí wọ́n fi ní polling unit kan opposite another one?
N tó fà ni pé ibi ìpọ̀ gan congestion máa wà tí a bá ní polling unit kó tó bí mẹ́ta kódà mẹ́ta gan ọ̀ká wa gan torí pé ibi congestion máa wà torí pé àpọ̀ gan àwa náà la fẹ́ pọ̀ jù.
Okay. Alright, ṣé ti múra láti dìbò?
A ti múra àti ṣe tán láti dìbò.
Okay, alright. Ẹ ká béèrè lọ́wọ́ ẹlòmíì. Ẹ káàárọ̀.
Ẹ káàárọ̀.
Okay. Kí ni báwo lẹ ṣe rí ètò ìdìbò yìí sílẹ̀ ni?
So far so good. So far so good. The atmosphere is relatively peace, even though we are having a slightly disagreement within the electorate, but with the intervention of stakeholders and people around, as you can see, everything has been resolved, and we have been enjoying a relatively peaceful atmosphere.
Okay, what was the issue? What was the issue?
The issue is that there are some people that said we should give time for the aging one, elderly one to vote before the youth, and there is a little disagreement between the two, and with the intervention of stakeholders, everything has been settled.
Okay, when it comes to every presence of security, do you feel secure in this place?
Yeah, so far so good. Although we are about to commence, but there is a level ground for the security operative. We commend them for that because we have been enjoying the equal treatment as at this moment.
All right, thank you very much. All right, I'm going to find out what this polling unit is called. Emma Binimomi. Good morning. I'm trying to find out the polling unit code, which is Unit 7. We're in Unit 7, and the registration area code is 2 for Eden North. We're still in Eden North, and it's just opposite the governor's polling unit. We just spoke to an elderly man, and he spoke about the fact that the crowd here would require over 3 polling units, and you can see the crowd, of course. The INEC official is addressing the people because they had a disagreement earlier on, and they were saying they want the elderly ones to, of course, vote before the young ones to enable them leave early. Now let's move back to the governor's polling unit. It's still in Abogunde, and it's just like I said earlier on, it's just opposite each other. Okay. And we would interview some persons. I think we have an electoral observer. Good morning.
I'm not an observer.
Okay, you're not an observer. Good morning. Okay, what are you here for?
I'm not here to vote, though. Well, I just came here with my boss.
You're here to what?
I came here with my boss.
With your boss? Okay, to do what?
No, I just carry him come here. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Well, we have everybody here on ground. He didn't come here to vote. He just came here to observe, even though he's not an election observer. Let's take another interview from someone. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
Okay, please, what's your name?
Olaboye Ajao Yekini. Olaboye Ajao Yekini.
Okay, sir. What are your expectations from this election?
My expectation is that this election will go smoothly without any problem.
Okay, can you shed more light on what the environment looks like right now?
The environment is very full, and the electorate are running out just to exercise their right. So.
All right, thank you very much, sir. All right, well, you've heard from him straight, and then the process is still ongoing. I'm trying to figure out what they are doing there. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry. Good morning. Okay, I think we still have the vote, the attendance for the polling agents. I can see polling agent for BP, for another party called A. We've seen them sign, and then we have election observers also. It looks like the election is about to commence at this particular ward, which is the governor's ward in Abogunde area of Eden North, Ward 2, Unit 9 in Eden North. out.
Well, thank you so much, Mercy, for that update. Of course, we will follow up. Like you mentioned, the voting is about to start. We also want to thank you, Nee. Of course, we will still come back to you and find out what's happening at your polling unit. Mr. Ekujumi and Mr. Emmanuel Ologun, thank you so much for joining to have this conversation. Of course, we know that you will join us back at 11, but before we let you go, Mr. Jake, let's start, Mr. Ekujumi, rather. What would be your take? Any final word based on what you've heard from, our correspondent and the voters so far?
Well, it's a very interesting scenario that is playing out. I've always had this confidence, implicit confidence, that Osho people are very politically aware, and that is playing out despite all the security challenges and the fear, some intimidation in some quarters, that we are seeing through the lens of your camera, the very high turnout in those polling units of voters. That's quite interesting and worthy of note. So, Andrew, that's quite interesting. And sorry, my colleague was raising his voice. So that's quite interesting and worthy of note. It's also important to underscore another layer of test that I have in mind, and that is the test that I consider very fundamental, which is inclusion. And I'm happy that your reporter has reported that the presence of persons with disability and inclusive resources, hopefully they will be used, because that's the problem. There's always a distinction between what happens in INEC headquarters and INEC rec office, state headquarters, and what happens in the field. Though hopefully there would be true inclusion, and the resources of inclusive resources will be put to use. I'm also very happy to see the presence of older persons, very, very, very interesting older persons. And I'm sure women, and of course, we heard the voices of persons with youths in polling units. And that's very good. And I hope that it will play out in other polling units where we have their presence. Like I said, South Africa is guided by data science. We're deploying based on where we know there are presence of persons with disability. And that's because we are working with very scarce resources, including INEC, who they don't have a huge budget for inclusive material and having issues of inclusion in all the polling units. So we've identified the polling units where these things will be, these resources are needed, and those are where the places where it will be deployed eventually. So let's hope for a better election. Let's hope for a better outcome. Let's hope to see that the political bigwigs, especially those of them from Abuja and other states, will allow the process to play out as expected. It is very unbecoming of some of these governors leaving their states. Yes, you should go and show of support to your brother governors when they are going to when they face their electorate. Yeah. However, it is very wrong for some of them to start making very unnecessary rhetorics and what looks like a mocking of the other candidate. And I'm going to be very particular to say that it was very unfortunate that the governor of Edo State will reduce himself to mocking his fellow governors. Well, that's not acceptable.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Ekujumi, for your input. Emmanuel Ologun, do you have something to say before we round up this conversation with you?
Yeah. If I'm to say anything, what I would just say is that electorate in Osun, everywhere they are, if they are listening to me, let everybody go out in mass to cast their vote. It is their vote, it is their right, and they should not let any institution disenfranchise them. Like I've always been saying, on election day will be peaceful. As at this morning, we have never heard of any gunshot anywhere. So it's an indication that all what has happened in the past, it is just a means of scaring people and to automatically disenfranchise them from casting their vote. Electorate, wherever you are in Osun State today, go out and cast your vote for the candidate of your choice. Thank you.
Well, Emmanuel, thank you so much. And Mr. Ekujumi, thank you for joining us to have this conversation. Of course, Mr. Ekujumi will still have you in the hour of 11 o'clock. So till then, we'll talk soon. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Now let's go on a very short break. When we return, the conversations about Osun State governorship election continues. Stay with us.
You're welcome back. Now, it's still Breakfast Extra, but the ballot this edition here, as Osun decides 2026, well, it's underway. And as polling units open across the state, the attention now shifts from campaigns and preparations to the actual voting process itself. For voters who have turned out this morning, the key questions are straightforward. Are polling units opening on time? Are election officials and materials in place? Are voters being properly accredited? And more importantly, is the BVAS functioning without major hitches? Beyond the voting process itself, security remains critical, with political tension often heightened. On election day, voters will also be watching to see whether security personnel are adequately deployed and whether they are creating an environment where citizens can vote safely and also freely. So there's also the question of voter turnout. Will the issues that dominate the campaign translate into strong participation at the polls?
Well, of course, to help us assess the situation as voting gets underway, we are joined by Oyedeku-Alli, public affairs commentator and convener, Progressive Youth Mandate. Oluwagbenga, should I cut it into two before I split, before I destroy your name? So thank you so much for joining us. Before we came live, I was asking you, so why did you decide to be a commentator for public affairs situation? But we're talking about Osun State. What's your take about the elections happening today?
Anyway, we have to, first of all, examine our democratic process. And we have to unanimously agree that all Nigerians, they want democracy. So, and that's top-notch. However, there are some issues like electoral violence, which didn't start today anyways. It started like 61 years ago, 1965, October 11th, and that was what led to the 1966 January 15 coup. The same thing happened in 1983, 1999. So I think all the political gladiators in this country, they have to come together and tell themselves the truth. We don't want violence in our politics again. And that's the only way people can get involved. Because two problems that we have presently, political violence and voter apathy. So if you look at the data since 1999, the last election, 2023, 20-something%, voted. And we had over 90,000 registered voters. You could see, even if you look at data based on this present Osun's election, you'll see that voter apathy is very, very strong in the rhythm. So we need to, first of all, see how we can come together and say no more to political violence so people can come in. And again, if you look at the demography of Nigeria, like 70% are Gen Zs, but they are not interested in politics. And most of them are just, and again, we need to now change the dynamics. How do we involve our youth in politics? How do we get them, enfranchised? How do we get them committed? This should be, the song on the lips of all the politicians and the gladiators. But INEC has done very well. So we need to, again, look at where we are coming from and where we are going. And because regardless, all the macroeconomic indicators is futile if the political democratic space is not intact. So basically,
Well, I will come back to the conversation of, why the young generation is not involved in politics. Of course, they've been complaining about the godfatherism situation. But in terms of the election today, would you say that INEC is ready for today's election?
No, INEC doesn't really have any option but to be ready because INEC has been equipped.
They don't have option.
Constitutionally. Because, again, let's look at where we are coming from. Something has really shifted, but people are not really focusing on it. If you look at the beavers, sometimes when I see people talk about their votes will not count, and I laugh at the ignorance. Beavers is biometric. So you can't vote twice. The era of double voting is gone. It's disappeared. So now, politicians are very smart. Now, the next problem we have now is political violence, and political violence precedes voter apathy. So once people, are intimidated, okay, look at what happened in Osun. According to the Nigerian police force, like 30 people have been killed. And normally, this is a grave crime to kill. Why? So, and again, we need to broaden the political space. Nigerians are very smart people. We can do better than this. But we have left where we are. And that's a plus for me anyway. So, and, we need to have more conversation. The macroeconomic aspect of the economy is okay, but the subnationals, and that's why we need to focus on the governors. The local government elections, the gubernatorial elections should be where, the media houses focus their attention, because that is where we need progressive infrastructural advancement for the people. So, and that will bring dividends of democracy.
Well, Benga, you just talked about beavers being, biometric, meaning they cannot...
You can't vote twice. That's...
But if we're having political issues, would you say that that is the reason, or there's a gap there for them to be a situation whereby... where they can exploit people's voting because they didn't come out to vote, so thereby they can use your biometric to vote on your behalf?
No, that's not possible anyways.
I think biometric says it all.
No, your fingerprint says it all. So your DNA is DNA driven.
Yeah, but we've had situations where beavers don't work.
Yeah, exactly.
So those are technical glitches. We can take.
So, but it's a technical glitch, but it is to be considered, because if beavers don't work, then you're disenfranchising people from actually voting. They would have all the credentials needed. They would have their PVCs. They could be authenticatable, if that's a word. Okay. But once they get there and the beavers don't work, then you've just said, okay, a whole ward doesn't get counted. So that influences the vote.
Okay, but over the years, INEC has really improved, and we need to...
Oh, have they? We need
to give kudos. They've really improved.
But the mock-up, I think August 1st, the mock-up elections executed by INEC showed that there were same technical glitches. They had issues with accreditation of voters using the BVAS machines. So if that happened then, what about today? Could it happen?
But based on the reports we are having, they are saying they have like over 1,300 backup beavers and all that. But, one of the things, again, we all have a moral responsibility as a nation, because I'm a patriot. I believe Nigeria will work. I believe Nigerians are smart. I believe Nigerians are very intelligent. You don't get what I'm saying. So when I see things not working, I keep saying that we have a civic commitment to enlighten, because there are so many technocrats that are not really interested in politics because of all the dirty, concept around politics. So they are not really, they are like, it's not worth it, So we need to get to a point. I saw something in Michigan, America, that touched me. There's this young guy called Abdul Sahid, is vying for the Senate. And, what happened really touched me. We need to move from government of the party for the party by the party to the government of the people. And the guy was able to convince, ordinary people in Michigan, and they were giving their money. So we need to make democracy about the people. We need to make the people to say, okay, we don't want you. Because, like, the point we have now, politicians are so entitled to power. They feel it's their birthright. So that alone disenfranchise the right people. that wants to serve genuinely.
Now, Benga, let's take a look at the apparatus itself for INEC and everything that they need to make a free, fair election. For a free, fair election, you need security. There's been much talk about security since the campaigning started, and we've had issues regarding violence when it comes to the campaign. We've had deaths, we've had stolen PVCs. We've had so many issues when it comes to the Osun politics. Apart from that, there's also the logistics angle. This would bring in the involvement of associations like the NURTW. Once you have security, once you have logistics, that's mostly the main factors that determine whether an election goes smoothly. You have to transport election materials and election staff. You also have to secure these materials and staff, and also create an environment for the voters to feel safe, not intimidated. So let's bring in every other dynamic here. The fact that the NURTW is involved in logistics in most elections, and even here in Osun State as well. And when it comes to the security, how many was that now, Queen? 25,000 security operators, spanning from police to civil,
15,000 police,
DIG's commission,
all of that. So how do you see these different dynamics playing in today's elections?
So again, we need to be innovative when it comes to our democratic process, and that's where I think we are falling short. Because let me give you an instance. There are some things that there is no synergy, there is no proper synergy. Okay, like you just pointed out some things, logistics, security, and INEC itself. So those are three factors we need to now focus on. Now, logistics should not be outsourced. Because maybe most of us don't understand what democracy is in governance. We need to make sure that everything is on point. You know, we need to cross the T's and dot the I's. We don't need to make it sound as if it's another event. It is the life of a nation. It is what produces good leadership. So we need to take it seriously. And I'm saying this to the authorities in charge, to the House of Assembly, to the Green and the Red Chamber, to the executive. We need laws that will really, really penalize any form of electoral violence. We need to remove it from our politics. In 2026, people are still killing. Come on. Nigeria should be more advanced than that. Democracy is no joke. Democracy is no joke. You know, I've read, some accounts, our progenitors, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Amadu Bello, Nnamdi Azikiwe, all those guys fought for democracy. They lost their lives, they fought for it. And when the military guys came in, we knew how many people died in the 90s. So you can't just make it sound as if it's one of a jamboree thing and people don't take it serious. Nothing about the INEC should be outsourced. There must be a synergy. There must be coordination. Intelligence gathering before election, and we must make it an institution. So we don't start reacting when election is about to start. They are killing, people are dying, and we start putting things in. There must be a law that makes it institutional. That these are things that should be done. We don't see American politics and see people killing themselves because of voting. We need to have gone past that, and that's where I think we need to focus our attention. However, we are making some progress, but it's slow. It's slow. We need to have gone past that. We need to have, built trust among the youth, because we have 70% of the population.
Let's double down on trust now, and trust where security is involved. Yes, the police are involved, civil defense are involved. I think Adeleke was of the opinion that the Amotekun vigilante also being involved, but I think that was disputed eventually. But security is very important, because I need to feel safe. I need to know that I'm leaving my home and I'm coming back home safe. Not just that, I need to also know that the votes are safe as well. So if you have buddies, whether it's the NURTW or whatever, what happens around these election materials when they leave or when they are being transported to and from the polling units? What is to be considered having these buddies be in charge of these logistics
And that's what I'm saying. I'm still trying to, because I just feel the logistic part
should not be outsourced
at all. These are very sensitive issues.
But at this point, that's impossible.
Agreed. But moving forward, okay, for instance, this is just an off-cycle election. So what happens 2027, January 16? So when, the security guys will be stretched. So how do we do it? So we need to start having conversations. We need to have gone past this. We need to have institutions, like we need to have laws that make some things mandatory.
So inadvertently, you're saying that this election is definitely a template for the 2027.
It is. It's a retest for the INEC chairman, Professor Amukwiton. It's a retest.
So this close to 2027 elections, do you think that there's anything that's going to change when it comes to logistics and the arrangements around logistics for election materials and safety of voters?
I can't speak for INEC, but what I'm saying is we need to have gone past outsourcing sensitive electoral materials. We need to have gone past that. We need to have a template, an organization or an institution that handles that.
Specifically.
So INEC has to be innovative, because I think one of the things that is our problem here is traditional, so we don't like changing things. We don't
stuck in our ways.
You don't get what I'm saying. So and that, I think that's been the problems we've had.
All right, Benga.
Well, while we're having this conversation, we can see that Governor Ademola Adeleke has gotten to his polling unit to vote. Is in Ede North, and of course we have our correspondent Mercy Babajide, who would see and try to connect with her to see what the governor is saying. So that is the live footage from Osun State. While we wait to hear from our correspondent with what is going on, Benga, we saw that INEC was asked to reproduce ballot papers because the court order has come to asked to include the SDP candidate into the ballot papers. Now, for a situation like this, and it was just a few days to the election, and of course INEC was like, okay, we're ready, we've done that. What would you say this situation is showing for INEC? Would you say that this is a show of INEC can be ready at any time if anything pops up? Or would you say that in situations like this, it would have been better for the court to have decided a long time ago so that we don't waste money? Because now we're in a country where everybody's trying to say we're trying to manage, but sometimes when we see some situations, we're concerned as to what's going on.
So for me, we still have to put some things in place institutionally. Now we need to start making laws that will not make that forbids this experience we just had. So making a pronouncement 2-3 days before an election, I think INEC has prepared, for this election. So it really, change the dynamics. Yeah. So I think what needs to be done, the Electoral Act of 2026 is not. It's a process.
Yeah.
I think we need to ratify it, and there are some things that should be included going forward to forbid this kind of things. Any electoral judicial, matters should be concluded like 2 months before the election.
Wow.
I think that would be better.
Okay.
So it will afford INEC, better time to prepare their logistics and all that, instead of, a court judgment disrupting INEC's plan. And
well, you're right. We'll continue this conversation, but right now let's head back to Ede North, where we have Governor Ademola Adeleke in his polling unit casting the vote. Let's take a look. Of course, that was Governor Ademola Adeleke who just cast his vote in Ede North. And of course, we will wait to see if he wants to address the public while we wait for that. Benga, you've been watching this. Of course, you and Mazino was having an interesting conversation. And I will just let you guys go into that conversation.
Let me put premise to that conversation that didn't go on the air. The governor just cast his vote in Ede. He's from Ede. Of course, you can imagine that he'll be looking to get plenty of political ground from that. And he's from Osun West. He's not the only one from Osun West. The big three, him, Oyebamiji, and Najib, are from Osun West. Najib is from Ejigbo. Oyebamiji is from Irewole.
Yeah.
And these are big strongholds. They carry plenty of votes. However, all three of them are in Osun West. So I'm wondering if you could tell us what you think about how this dynamic plays into the votes that we're expecting from these local government areas and who you think might be ahead when it comes to the influence that they have on the people, what they've done for the people. Just a second, Wenga. The governor is addressing the public. I'll come back to you so you can answer that, but let's take a listen to Governor Adeleke.
Police officer from Port Harcourt, they brought him, the APC Osun, brought it to come and do a job to destroy my town again so that people will not vote. So I want the Inspector General of Police to take note and do the needful. Police Commissioner election, DIG election, she take note. And all my people there should watch out. That's number one. And I have it on authority of information that they don't want to go through the normal process of from units to ward and to local government. They want to just take it all the way to the collation center. And that is not acceptable. They must follow the rules. And that is why I'm urging my people to watch out. And I know by the special grace of God, I'm winning this election. By the special grace of God. Thank you.
After casting his vote in Ede, local government area where he is from, already you can see here that the sentiments being raised might be one of doubt. I hate to say this, but it seems so because there already seems to be that infusion of, hey, let's protect what's happening here because I noticed that this and this is happening. And as Osun politics go, you know where this might end up, in court. But I don't want to talk about this yet. Let's talk about the fact that these three big players for the elections are from Osun West?
Osun West.
What do you think, who do you think might be playing a bigger game here?
So, like, if you look at the data, you see that it's going to be a very tight race. It's going to be very tight. And don't forget that the Adelekes are no pushovers in Osun politics. You know, they have, their name is a brand, you know, in Osun politics. And again, some three zones are going to decide who becomes the governor. Osogbo Olorunda has almost 300,000 registered voters. Ife and his environs, over 300,000 registered voters. And Elisha and his environs, over 300,000. So if you just collate those three zones, it's almost 1 million registered voters. And the total registered voters, it's 2.3 million. So
2.34.
2.3 is thereabout. So if you look at these three zones, you know, so any person amongst the three that wins, that lives in these three zones and fulfilling the constitutional requirement of 25% in 2/3 of the states is the winner of the election.
Interesting.
All right.
Is the winner of the election.
Well,
so these three zones are are like almost 1 million registered voters. So, and the factor again that is going to be key is mobilization. So I'm not going to tell politicians what to do anyways. Is to mobilize people to come out and vote. And that's key.
All right. So we've been informed now that voting has started across all local government areas. We'll continue to bring you visuals and details from all of the wards as our correspondents are manning most of these wards and also traveling in between them. We've seen the Ede vote by the governor himself, and he addressed the public. We also have our guest in here. Gbenga is talking to us about the preparedness of INEC for the situation today across Osun. We will be back to talk to you, Gbenga, about most of the issues regarding Osun West. It's a very interesting and tight race by all three big players of all 14. Were to be 14 players inside 15. Of the 15 players. But we will have that conversation right after this break here. Don't go anywhere. Do stay with us. We're still observing the ballots here for Osun gubernatorial elections 2026. We'll be back. Stay with us.
láti wọ́n sọ ní yí pé bóyá àsìkò ètí tó láti mo tí ṣe kinní kọ̀ǹpútà tí wọ́n bí báyìí láti bẹ̀rẹ̀.
Kí ni expectation yín finally fún ìbò tèmi pé báwo ló ṣe máa lọ?
Ó máa lọ dáadáa, kò ní sí wàhálà.
You read it from her. She's saying that she got here at about 7:30 a.m., you know, and she got here, did accreditation. From then till now, it's about 8:45 when she finally cast her vote. But she's saying that, you know, they had issues with the beavers machine earlier that caused, you know, the delay. And now she has finally cast a vote, saying that the reason was because, you know, the ad hoc staff said that they hadn't powered up their machine from the rack centers, but now it's all the beavers machines are working, and now voting has started fully.
Well, that was our correspondent Omolola Ololade in Ejigbo. Of course, voting has commenced. Of course, we also have Ni all the way in Ayodeji local government area. As voting has started, we will follow up with them to see how it's going and what next. Now, Osun State goes to the polls today, of course, with about 2.34 million registered voters across 30 local government areas. While 14 candidates are on the ballot, 15 now, the major contest is expected to center on APC's Bola Oyebamiji, incumbent Ademola Adeleke of Accord, and ADC's Najim Salam, with key voting blocks including Oshogbo, Ife East, Olorunda, Ife Central, and Iwo. Turnout and voter mobilization could be decisive. Of course, to help us understand these data, these battlegrounds, and what could determine the outcome, we have our very own Abdul Latif Ahmed. Good morning, Latif. Of course, thank you for joining us. I think let's talk about the strength of the APC, the Accord ADC. Which candidate currently has the strongest path to victory and why?
Basically, you have a lot of mobilization going on. The parties are doing whatever it takes for them to emerge as victorious in the elections. Osun has particularly been an interesting state. You'll recall that the first governor of the state, the late Nzeakor Adeleke, was a civilian governor at some point. And in 1999, we had Bisi Akonde, and then we had Ologun coming in after him, and after which we had Arebeshola, and then he had two terms. He had 2 terms before we had another a defeat by the PDP, and then now we have Governor Adeleke, you know, in power. In any case, all the parties contesting believe they will win. But what remains clear is that there has been more mobilization in terms of parties interested in delivering their constituencies. Now, one thing again we have realized is that there has been increased number of registered voters between the last 2 elections and now. There's an increase in the number of registered voters, but there's a decline in the number of persons who end up voting. So what we have is that while there is awareness, more awareness about electioneering, about voting, voter education, about the need for more persons to vote. We have more registrations going on. But at the end of the day, in terms of those who come out to vote, what we have seen in the last election, yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to cut you there for a second because we have visuals from Osun State in Ede right now. The governor, incumbent, is currently talking to the people again. He has so much to say this election. So let's take a listen to what's happening currently. We'll come back to you on the stats so you can define most of this for us.
We don't want him in Osun. We don't want violence in Osun. All we want is free and fair election so that people can perform their civic duty. That's one. And two, the pattern of voting should be from unit to ward and to local government. Not that they will take local government collation straight to state capital. That is not acceptable. That's a form of rigging. And I heard it on the authority that the APC have, trying to rig, have some fake ballot papers. I want Osun people to watch out for that too. And then we don't accept. Well, we will not accept that in Osun. Right now, as I'm voting right now, I just received a call in Modakeke and Obagun that police is aiding them to tear gas them so that people can run away. And people are resolute. They just want to perform their civic duty. Let the security agency please be neutral and watch it. But I can assure you, at the end of the day, I have God on my side and I have my people on my side. I'm going to win this election.
You have just voted. The process has just begun. Yeah. What's your assessment?
I've already told you. I said so far so good. It's been peaceful in my area here. I hope it's like that cut across. But it's not peaceful in Modakeke and of course in Obaogo. The police are aiding the APC to tear gas people so that they will not vote. They took the ballot board and ran away. So we have already reported this to the security agencies. I hope they do something so that they will not turn Osun State into war zone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Excellency.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this yours? I'm rapid. Are we clear? Please leave the road. No, leave that road for them. Sorry.
.30 above both. 8:30 and above.
8:30. Yeah. How long? Face the camera, please. Okay. How long did it take you to, from accreditation now to the final? How long did it take you?
It's about maybe 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
But earlier, they were struggling with the beavers machine.
Yes.
What's your reaction to that?
Because of the time. So because of the time, we have told that it's not yet time to start. We're supposed to start at around 8:30. But because of the time is not reached, so we're not able to start at the normal time.
So what's your expectations for today's exercise?
Everybody that they should come out and vote for any candidate that they want. So that is it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very there. He said that, the reason why the beavers machine earlier didn't work was because it wasn't time for them to start voting. Voting was supposed to start at 8:30 because, the beavers machine weren't up until that time. He said he has finally cast his vote and is hoping, advising everyone to come out to vote for the candidate of their choice.
who is currently in Osun State, bringing us details from the elections. And we also have our other correspondents who are across Osun State, Omoniyi as well as Mercy. They'll also be bringing us details. In the studio here with us, we still have Gbenga. Gbenga has been discussing with us about INEC's preparedness for 2027 elections. One small thing before I let you go, Gbenga. While the governor was speaking back then, you said something very interesting. You noted a sense of nervousness. To put it lightly, it was much graver than that, what you said, but I'm not going to put it the same way you said it.
No, it's obvious now.
Why do you
The governor, you can see the trembling. The governor is nervous, and that's the bad indicator for his supporters. He needs to just firm up and speak with more confidence. You know, today is not the day of reaction. You know, you have 4 years to prepare yourself for today. You know, your performance, all those metrics, you should have put all those metrics into place, you know, so...
He's highlighting some challenges that he's facing there. Do you think that that falls under him being nervous? He's preparing it seems like he's preparing the people for maybe what might be an eventuality in court.
I think we need to unanimously as a nation, you know, forbid taking, you know, election matters to court. Let it be decided by the people on the election day. It is a bad pattern, and you know our political gladiators have come to embrace, you know, the judiciary becoming the last decider of outcome of electoral process. Is wrong. You know, Nigeria is 66 years old. We need to have gone beyond some certain specifics, and I know we have a president that is very, you know, attentive. So, and you know, the leader has to just direct all the followers, regardless of partisanship. There are some things we need to have gone beyond. And so she was talking about, you know, why can't we have something like an event center that people could go to? We are supposed to have gone past, you know, this level of you know, of pictures from our election centers. Look at you know, you know, the graphics. So I think what is worth doing is worth doing well. Nigeria is a big nation.
Yeah,
and we need to live up to that expectation.
2022, the governor actually won because of Osun West. Ede, Irowole, and Ejigbo. There were very big numbers when it comes to the final outcome. For him to be in this state now, especially in his own hometown, is that indicative of anything?
No, it's going to be very tight. Don't forget that Nojim is from Ejigbo. So the votes in Ejigbo will be splitted. So, like, and again, the places he did very well in the last election, he might not have those kind of inroads in this election. Osogbo is another, you know, like, has one of the largest amount of registered voters. And with what we are seeing, people are actually coming out. Voter party, you know, might reduce, but people are actually coming out to vote. With what we are seeing so far, but it's going to be a very tight race.
All right. Well, Gbenga, I want to say thank you very much for having this conversation here with us. You have put some lights to the situation. Your commentary is well noted. Let's see whether your what was that? He said prediction, which we didn't tell. We didn't tell what.
So it's going to be a very tight race. But with what we are seeing, it will be very slim. The winner will come out with marginal numbers.
Well, we're here to see.
Like 2022.
Yeah, 400 votes that time.
Yeah, something like that.
400 votes.
Because the Adelekes too are very strong politically.
Well, we'll see. You know, when you mentioned Nigeria, it says 66 years, and in my mind, I was like, well, old youth, that's who we are. Well, let's go on a quick break. When we return, we will have, you know, data analysis with Abdul Latif Ahmed right here in News Central. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us.
Láti dìbò àti àsìkò lẹ ti wà níbí àti pé finally aago mélòó lẹ dìbò.
Mo ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ dé gan ni ọlá wípé ojú mo ní problem ojú náà tètè dá mi lóhùn ntọ́fà nìyẹn.
Okay, so that means pé wọ́n prioritize health yín. Mo fẹ́ béèrè lọ́wọ́ yín sí pé kí ni ẹ rí sí ìdìbò tó ṣẹlẹ̀ lẹ́yìn àti pé kí ni outcome tẹ́ rò pé nǹkan máa ṣẹlẹ̀, kí ni expectation yín.
Ìbò tòní ó dùn mọ́ mi torí pé láti wá láti dìbò fún gómìnà tí wọ́n máa darí wa la fi jáde la fi túyáyà jáde pé láti yẹ pé ká dìbò la fi jáde lónìí.
ṣé ẹ believe pé gbogbo ẹ máa lọ smoothly kò ní sí wàhálà kò ní nírọ̀rùn ló máa lọ.
kò ní sí wàhálà mo ń wé kò ní sí wàhálà kankan pẹ̀lú ògo Ọlọ́run pẹ̀lú àṣẹ Ọlọ́run kò ní sí wàhálà kankan.
ẹ ṣé sir. You've heard it from him. He's saying that, he just got to the polling unit now and he was prioritized because of his condition, his health, because he's physically disabled. He was prioritized. He's a blind person. He came here, immediately the ad hoc staff had to attend to him because of his situation. And he's saying that he's, optimistic that today there won't be any violence or nothing like that. People will cast their vote and, of course, the best candidates win.
bàbá mi tó fẹ́ dìbò ọ̀tọ̀ lẹ́ni tó wá fẹ́ bá fọ́ tẹ̀ka ìdí ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ ni àti ṣẹ́tù ẹ̀.
Okay, so they're saying that the man, the elderly man was supposed to be the one to vote himself, but somebody else was, wanted to thumbprint for him, and then, that has caused the chaos that you're seeing here now.
Back, and of course, today is still the Osun State governorship election. Of course, voting rather is still on the way, and of course, we have 2.34 million registered voters across 30 local government areas. While 14 or 15 candidates are on the ballot, the major contest is expected to center on APC's Bola Oyebamiji, incumbent Ademola Adeleke of Accord, and ADC's Najim Salam. Now, with key voting blocks including Oshogbo, Ife East, Olorun Da, Ife Central, and Iwo, turnout and voter mobilization could be decisive. Now, to help us understand the numbers, the major battlegrounds, and what could determine the outcome, we're now joined by Abdul Latif Ahmed. And I must say, I wanted to name this segment the inquisitive segment, where we're going to have Mazino and Latif go back and forth. I will chip in. I'm the cherry on top of the cake. So, Latif, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of the Ballot on Breakfast Extra.
Good morning again.
Now, looking at, of course, the strength, everything, what is happening? Give us, give us the nitty-gritties. What are we missing?
Yes. Okay, well, it's good that we're having an election in Osun State today. Osun used to be a tough nut to crack. A little background to what Osun was before what we have now, because it's important, because the first governor of Osun State, Nzeakor Adeleke, the late Nzeakor Adeleke, is related to the present governor of Osun State. The Adeleke family, very strong, political family in Osun State.
Wasn't he also the third?
What?
He was part of the First Republic, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was governor in 1992, and then he lasted for about a year before the military struck. In any case, he is someone who is known very well. The face, the name, the family is known, very well established in Osun State. So it's very much known. It's a name like a household name.
It's familiar.
In any case, in 1999, we had Bisi Akonde, who emerged from the, general climb of AD, Alliance for Democracy. You had the Afeni-Ferries and all that, who, you have the Southwest generally having that feel of, aligned to Awolowo and all of that. So he emerged as the governor. But surprisingly, one of the biggest, will I say, political upset happened just 4 years into office when, in 2023, when Ologun of the PDP defeated him. Not surprising that he got almost twice the vote that, the incumbent governor had. So, and when Ologun was, governor, he was also then defeated by someone from another party. So what we have observed in Osun State is that Osun is not aligned to one party, so like we have in Delta State since 1999, where you have PDP, being in power all through, and some other states, that are traditionally, in one party. So it has been switches between here and there. Yeah. So the third slide.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's take a look at some of those stats that you've brought along with you. If we can have Abdulatif's slides come up on the screen so that he can give us detailed numbers regarding the elections and maybe history leading us up until here. There you go, Abdulatif.
Okay. So, in any case, the history has shown that we've had switches between parties. So we had the AD, we had the ACN, we had PDP, we had, so these are the numbers, the voting blocks. What we have is Irewole with about 96,528,000 registered voters. We have 96,528,000 registered voters in Irewole, and that is Oyebamiji's home base. That is the APC gubernatorial candidate. You have Ifelodun with 94,870 registered voters, and it's very solid, battleground in Osun Central. Then there's Ilesha East with 89,491. It's one of the most important core areas that APC expects votes from. But now it's a tussle between the APC and Accord Party. You have Ilesha West with 86,699 registered voters. Well, it's a split between the three candidates. Then you have Ejigbo. Ejigbo is 84,532 registered voters, and that is where Salam's home base is. In any case, the ADC expects to get a lot of votes from here, and it has been one of the hot spots. You have Ila Ologun with 41,335,000 registered voters. Oshogbo, well, this is the capital, and this is the largest single local government that would impact the elections with 167,704 registered voters. You have Ife East. It has solid. It's a solid electoral block for Accord in this case, but the APC expects to get a lot of numbers from this, and then also the ADC is making inroads. You have Ologun with 123,063 voters. It's a major urban voting block alongside with Oshogbo. We have Ife Central with 122,445,000 voters. It's a major battleground also. Then you have Iwo and Ede North, which is Adeleke's home base. And Adeleke expects to get most of the significant votes from there. Now, if you look at the entire number of gubernatorial candidates, you have an 84-year-old Adiagbo Okpawoye Yemisi of the ADP, who is the only female contesting amongst male contestants.
Did you just tell her age?
She's 84 years old.
84?
Yeah. She's 84
okay.
years
the
old.
youth.
Yeah,
okay.
Interestingly. But I like the fact that she dared to make a mark, because it's problematic when you see an all-male affair in electioneering. I know that elections are very tough. They're not easy. But the less we see women represented in electioneering, the more likely it is for us to have an unbalanced society, because we would always need the input, the view, the perspective of women in governance.
Latif, let's talk about the contrast when it comes to representation with the candidates. You only have one person who's female out of 14 candidates. And let's compare that to the electorate, the people who would be voting, because apparently it's over 52% of voters who are registered and have the right credentials to vote. They're female.
Yeah.
But for representation, there's only just one person. I don't know how that's going to push the votes when it comes to that dynamic there. What do you think?
Yeah, so the sentimentality around voting in Nigeria is not necessarily gender-wise.
Yeah.
But the problem is that political parties do not give, flagship or flag bearer slot just because your face is beautiful or because you're a woman. You have to work hard for it. So even for men, you must work hard and show that you can deliver the votes.
Capable.
So just being a woman does not necessarily, give you, the carte blanche and, just the right to, lead a political party. But what we want to see is that beyond a female flag bearer, people should be able to say, you know what, this is where we get the most votes from. We should be able to say we have female representation, proper representation, not just make believe or just let her be there as a face of it. Someone who, because I can bet you that there are many women who are ably qualified to lead Osun State. But if you do not give them the chance, or if you have to muzzle up the electoral process, sometimes women don't like problems. They don't like problems, the kind of problems that you must encounter in electioneering in Nigeria before you emerge as a candidate. Are you ready for late night meetings? Are you ready to hire thugs? Will you buy guns? Will you get, I mean, some of these things.
That's like absolutely
so these are some of the things that I know that women may not be too keen on. Yeah.
Latif, this morning when we talked to Ni, he spoke in Yoruba to mostly aged women who came out very early.
From 125 to about 80 years old.
That's something to note, because these were older women. It was mostly women who were out at that. I think it was Ejigbo, if I'm mistaken. Was
No. Ayodeji.
Ayodeji, I apologize. It was at Ayodeji. Now, that was curious to me, because why mostly women? Why mostly of that age? Brings into question the youth representation as well. He did speak to one person who had a beer in hand, if you remember, which was very interesting. However, regarding these women, you can still subsect them into different categories themselves, because you want to know exactly where, what their occupations are. Are they housewives, farmers? Are they civil servants? And that, of course, also has its own influence in the arithmetic of how the vote is going to turn out. Do you have any idea of how that might also affect the situation today?
Come again? Let me get it.
I'm asking if you know how that dynamic, when you subsect these women voters into different categories using occupation and maybe even age, how it might affect the elections today, the outcome of the elections.
Okay, well, generally speaking, I know that most of those who will continue to participate in election, there's a block that is the largely uneducated, artisans and people who are not enlightened. They seem to show more willingness and eagerness to vote as against enlightened voters, surprisingly. Now, this is so because a lot of people feel, you know what, I have a lot of stakes. I have a lot to protect. I do not want to harm myself. I don't want to harm my family. So some of them are most likely going to be behind their mobile phones, mobile phones, and then just watch how it pans out. And if they see that from the way it pans out, there is some semblance of peace, they would go out to vote. But if they see there's violence and all that, they will stay back. So while we expect that enlightened electorates, lead in terms of, voter turnout and all that, surprisingly, most of the votes, the biggest votes happens to be not from the enlightened class. It's mostly from rural, farmers and artisans and people who just want to put their mark, in history making.
Which of the big three, do you think has much of that crowd out of Oyebamiji, out of Adeleke, out of Najim's camp?
They all have their crowds, but clearly it's between the first two, Oyebamiji and Adeleke. Najim is somebody you have to watch out for, because although I know that he's likely going to be the third, in the entire process.
Okay.
What I think is that sometimes that third person can be a decider as to
Latif,
what direction we take.
I really am so interested in this data analysis that you're giving us. But before we continue, let's move over to Ejigbo right now. Of course, we have our correspondent, Omolola Ololade, speaking to the people with disabilities who just voted. Let's hear her out.
Ṣé wọ́n tètè dá yín lóhùn ẹ mọ̀ torí condition pé kínní?
Wọ́n tètè dá mi lóhùn.
Kí wàá ní expectation yín fún vote tèmi báyìí?
Ṣé pé.
Bí gbogbo ìdìbò yìí ṣe máa lọ báwo lẹ ṣe rò kí ló máa jẹ outcome?
Pẹ̀lú ògo Ọlọ́run kò ní sí ìyọnu kankan, gbogbo ọlọ́wọ́ sí ẹ̀kọ́ lọ́rùn, ṣé ọlọ́ba wa sí rọrùn, ẹ ṣe yẹn.
Kini so share pẹ̀lú gbogbo tó tẹ́tí rí ṣé ẹ rò pé gbogbo máa lọ létòlétò kò ní sí gbogbo ẹni rògbòdìyàn kankan.
Pẹ̀lú ògo Ọlọ́run gbogbo máa lọ létòlétò kò ní sí rògbòdìyàn kankan.
Ẹ ṣé gan. You've heard it from him. He said that he got there at about 8:08, and that because of his situation, he's also been prioritized, to cast his vote now and then leave. He's saying that, the votes, the elections today is going to go smoothly. He's so optimistic that there won't be any violence or whatsoever at his own polling unit and across the state, of course.
Come back to you for more details as to how the elections is going. Thank you so much. And now we're joined by Ayodeji Ologun, who is the spokesperson for the Osun Mastermind. Mr. Ayodeji Ologun, thank you so much for joining us this morning to have this conversation about the elections. Now, of course, from your interactions with, good morning, from your interactions with voters and your monitoring of the elections so far, what would you say has been the biggest issue that's influenced voters today to come out and vote?
Well, this morning, I've visited about 3 local governments. That's Ologun local government, Osogbo local government, and of course, Ekujumi local government, which are the surrounding local governments in the Osogbo metropolis. And one thing that is visible is the enthusiasm of the people to come out to vote, unlike the prediction or contrary to the fear of the political pundits that the violence that preceded the election might prevent people from coming out on the day of election. I saw something contrary to that in the previous government I've said this morning. People trooped out en masse to vote their preferred candidate. I've visited the polling unit in Owode 1 of all of the local government. I've been to Ataja 5. I've been to Ataja Ibalaye Street. I've been to Ataja 5 at about 5 a.m. And one thing remains constant. As at the time voting is expected to start at 8:30, some of these polling units already had over 100, 200 persons standing, waiting for the commencement of the exercise. And the INEC officials arrived on time. All of these polling units I talked about between the hours of 8:30 and 9, virtually all the polling units around the areas, around these 3 local governments, had agents of INEC or staffs of INEC and the adult staffs promptly on ground. And they follow, another thing is they followed the rule. I waited to see if they were going to play by the rules and the letters. And of course, the adult staff that staying with Analyst did exactly that by arriving at the polling unit, addressing the voters, telling them what the pattern of voting would be, telling them exactly what they expected to do, showing them the ballot box empty and where to be placed, showing them where the voting would take place, showing them how to put the voting sheets and how to have it dropped in the voting voters ballot. And of course, that's really followed by assessment of the party agents who were then allowed to vote before we now move on to voting by people that are with disability, and of course, followed by the agents before they now throw the ballot open to every other person. So one thing is constant. The people of Osun State seems to have resolved to do the needful in ensuring that they participate in the process and elect the leader of their choice that will lead Osun State going forward.
Ayodeji, thank you very much. Ayodeji, I'm going to be having a conversation between you, myself, Queen, and also Latif, who we have in the studio here. Latif has been giving us some very interesting details about the elections, the numbers from before, the history, and how it might influence the eventuality of today. My biggest concern, Ayodeji, is around the Osun West issue. The fact that 3 of the big players are actually all from Osun West, Oyedekun-Alli, Najim, and also Adeleke himself. And I was asking Abdulatif earlier what he thinks might happen with these 3 big contenders vying for the votes from this same area where they're all from. It's quite different from what we saw in the past election with Adeleke winning. This time he's got both other contenders are from the same part of the state. So what's your take on how the votes might be shared across these 3 candidaate?
The 2 local governments that are likely to determine the eventual winner of this election is primarily Osogbo local government and Ologun local government, who are not only from the central senatorial districts, but have the largest number of polling units and have the highest number of voters. Just like you rightly said, the 3 major contenders are from the West Senatorial District. The incumbent is from Ede, And of course, the candidate of the APC is from Ikire. And then we have the candidate of the ADC from Ejibo, which means that substantially the votes from the West would be shared among these three. Unlike the last election, where the Adeleke had an advantage of being the only major candidate from the West. This time around, the three major contenders are from the West, which means the votes of the West will be shared substantially among these three. Interestingly also, the two major contenders, that is the APC and the Accord Party, the two of them have their deputies from the East Senatorial District, particularly Ife. The incumbent deputy governor of the state is from Ife, and the deputy governorship candidate of the APC is also from Ife, which means that substantially the vote of Ife North, Ife Central, and Ife East would be contended and shared substantially between these two major contenders. Don't also forget that two other major factors that will influence the vote from the East is the influence of the former secretary of the APC, that is Iyola Omishore, who seems to not have his own weight in the APC. While he has not left the APC, while we saw him on the stage campaigning for the APC at the last, the last campaign, a lot of his foot soldiers, including commissioners that he made under the administration of Oyetola, of all defected to support the Accord Party candidate. So we will see how his influence will either be withered down or will play out in today's election. We also must not forget that the incumbent rep member from that zone is also of the APC division. The senator from that zone, the East Senatorial District, is also of the APC divide. So which means if these votes from the East and the West will be substantially shared between the two major parties, that is the Accord Party and the APC, because of their candidacy, who gets the majority of the votes from the Central Senatorial Districts, particularly that of Osogbo and Olorunda, might carry the day, because those two local governments, the vote that will come out from there and to whose favor will be a very major determinant in who wins today's election.
All right, thank you very much, Ayodeji. Ayodeji and Lateef, please, I'll have you guys on hold because we're going to go to our correspondent, Mercy Babajide, who is also in Osun State, to give us details of her location. Mercy, good morning. Thank you very much. Please tell us where you are right now and what the situation is. How's voting going on? Have you noticed any irregularities or anything encouraging? Do tell.
Well, we've moved over to the voting at Abogunde Compound Unit 9 Ward 2 of Ede North. And like I said earlier on, we had 1,082 registered people that are expected to vote across this polling unit. But then the major problem right now is the beaver is not working. Standing by my left is someone that has tried countless times, and yes, she has gone through all others, but then when it got to the beavers, it is not working. They equally complained, as you can see on the screen, that this particular beaver is trying to capture someone, and we've been on this person for over 10 minutes right now, over 10 minutes, and it is not capturing the face for some reason. Mommy, Ekasoma. Yes, Meti try to vote. Kilo shele.
One capture lórí kini machine for
Okay, so you can go. Okay, she's about to try again, and hopefully it works this time. So the other lady pushed a scarf to the back, and then the beaver was able to capture her face. But right now we're moving back to this woman again, and hopefully it works this time around. But then the crowd is agitated. They're quite agitated a bit because she equally said she's been here since 6 a.m. this morning, of course, for her to be able to vote. But then Governor Ademola Adeleke had voted. He was, of course, the first person to vote this morning. Let's take some other persons. Ekaroma. Eti vote ma.
Eti vote.
Báwo ni ó ṣe ṣe ó rọrùn ni àbí kò rọrùn àti gbogbo.
Ó rọrùn púpọ̀ láti ṣe.
Okay, ma dúpẹ́ ma. Okay, so she said it was easy for her to do. Let's take one other person. Ekaro sir.
Ekaro.
Ṣé ti dìbò?
Ó kù díẹ̀ ká dìbò kò tí ì kàn wá.
Okay, báwo.
Kíni yẹn lò kíni bíbá yẹn wọ́n ní kò ṣiṣẹ́ dáadáa.
Okay.
So on slow. They even kò get ẹlòmíì. So even torí ẹ̀ náà fi ní kàn jáde sí iwájú ìta díẹ̀ so that kíkiní yẹn lè clear. So náà là ń ṣe lọ́wọ́.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Ìdìbò bẹ́ẹ̀ kíní yẹn slow. Kíní yẹn ò yá bó ṣe yẹ kó yá. Àwọn èèyàn dẹ̀ pọ̀ tán fẹ́ dìbò. So kí Ọlọ́run ṣàánú wa kí kíní yẹn tí kíní yẹn bá ṣe ń sìn gbogbo àwọn èèyàn ó láǹfààní ní òjì tí ìjẹ́ káwa yẹn ó tò. Because à ń dúró pé kí ibẹ̀ yẹn ó fàdí ẹ̀kọ́ tó ipá wa náà tó ẹ̀yin náà ìwé bílà yẹn ṣe gùn tó. So kíní yẹn ò dẹ̀ yára bẹ́ẹ̀. So tọ́ ẹ pàtó ṣe bá wà tán bá lè bá wa ṣe ṣe ìbádùn mọ́ wa púpọ̀.
Adúpẹ́ sir. Kí ló kọ́ yín sir?
Orúkọ mi ni Ọlábóyè Abdulrasheed.
Adúpẹ́ sir. Well, we are going to move over to Grandma here, who is going to tell us, because there's quite a long queue at the back. And what the man has said there, I will translate in English, where he has said beavers is very slow and it's been difficult to, of course, capture people's face, even though several persons have moved their cars to the back and all of that. Yes, ma. Kí lorúkọ yín mọ́ mi?
Ahmed Hafsat Ọlábísí.
Báwo lẹ ṣe rí ètò ìdìbò yìí sí láàárọ̀ yìí?
Ó ń dùn gan-an ni, Ọlọ́run ó sì jẹ́ ó dùn dáadáa kalẹ̀. Yóò dùn. Ẹ̀yìn ìbò iná ó tún dùn. Ẹ̀yìn òní ó tún máa dùn lọ ni. Ó dùn, ó wà òkè, ó wà dáadáa. Ó dáa jẹ́ tá à ń tí ń dì lọ, Ọlọ́run ó sì jẹ́ ó dáa. Iná ìyá Yorùbá. Iná ìyá.
Ma?
Mo ní sọ ọ̀gbọ́ Yorùbá ọ̀gbọ́ tí mo.
Ọgbọ́ Yorùbá.
Okay.
Adúpẹ́ ma. Okay. Well, when Governor Adeleke came, he spoke about, of course, the voters ensuring that they vote. But then let's take a look at how long the queue is. That's a queue for one of the polling units at the other side. And then this other side, you can even see people no longer queuing, but now sitting down on the floor. People are sitting down on the floor because the queue is long and people have been here as far back as 6 a.m. this morning, and some are even sitting right now. The queue is quite long. It runs all the way down to into the street. And people are willing to, of course, exercise their voting rights here at Eden North, the governor's polling unit. Okay, looks like we have another polling unit at the other side. We will be visiting that area to see if there is any problem or if things are running smoothly, because there are network issues at the other side there. I think my camera guy should just see the crowd from my left. He would be able to take visuals of people to my left and see how much people we have here now at this polling unit 7 in Eden North. Okay, now let's move over to the other polling units. It looks like we have 3 polling units and they have formed a circle. One polling unit facing each other, and this is just right behind our polling unit, still in Eden North of Osun State. Now let's take what people are going to say here. Ekaro, Daddy. Yes, sir. Kí lorúkọ bí, sir?
Abogunde.
Sagba Abogunde. Okay, báwo ni ètò ìdìbò ṣe ń lọ níbí?
Kò sí wàhálà.
Ṣé ti dìbò?
A ti dìbò.
Okay, adúpẹ́ gan ni, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, now, yes, sir, adúpẹ́, sir. Now let's take more reviews. It looks like everything seems in order right in this polling unit. I'm trying to figure out the polling unit. Okay, this is polling unit 10, still in Eden North, just right behind the governor's polling unit. Let's take interviews of some persons. Good morning. Okay, can you face the camera?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been here?
Like 30 minutes.
Like 30 minutes. How easy is it for you to vote?
It's very easy. It's very easy. Any problem?
There's no problem.
There's no problem.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Good morning, sir.
Morning, sister.
How long have you been here for?
I'm here since during the former governor, Ayodeji.
No, I'm saying how long have you been on this queue for?
Don't tell.
How many hours or minutes?
Don't reach just 35 minutes.
Okay, why do you think you've been here for this long?
I must wait for queue. I wait for the queue.
Okay. So the queue is quite quite long.
Yes.
Okay. All right, you've heard from him. He said the queue is long, and that is why he's not been able to exercise his voting rights. But then all seems perfectly normal at this side. This is polling unit 10 of Ede North, in, of course, in Ede, right behind the governor's polling unit. Right behind the governor's polling unit, rather.
Well, Messi, thank you so much for that. But before you go, let's talk about people with disabilities. Have you been able to see anyone with disabilities at this polling unit, and how has it been for them to assess voting this morning?
People have actually voted this morning. I said earlier on that the governor was the first person to vote at the other polling units because, of course, they said they wanted to start voting by 8:30, and the governor came by 8:30 on the dot, of course, to vote. And equally, he was the first person to vote. But then right after the governor left, there was issues with, they had issues rather with the beavers that I showed earlier on. I'm hoping that before we get back there, they would have resolved all the issues they have with the beavers, but mostly it was for women who tied scarves on their head who couldn't vote.
All right, thank you, Mercy. Mercy, we'll come back to you with more questions from Ede there. Do continue with the observation. We'll be back with you. Let's take a short break. We still have Abdul Latif and Ayodeji here with us. We'll continue with that analysis when we get back. Welcome back. Osun State decides today, and here for the ballot Saturday morning, we are monitoring with our correspondents all across Osun State how the elections are going. Thank you very much for joining us. We also have still with us our in-house analysts. That's Abdul Latif here. Abdul Latif has been giving us details about the history and implications of history when it comes to today's elections. Ayodeji also is on board, and he's giving us details about what's happening today with the details that we're getting and the stats. Gentlemen, thank you for remaining with us. Now, Ayodeji, before we went on a break and before we had our correspondents there, I was talking with Abdul Latif and I was asking a very detailed question regarding Osun North. Now, I hear what you said regarding Osogbo and Olorunda. As one of the largest collectives of voters, and how that might also matter when it comes to the eventuality of today's votes. But Osun West is a very dynamic and interesting detail to add to the elections here, because we have three major candidates, the three top candidates coming from that one place. And I'm wondering who exactly might hold sway, noting that since all three of them are from these parts, they would have to share the votes. So, Abdul Latif, I'm going to turn to you again here inside of the studio. We were talking earlier about how this could go, how it could split, and who has or who stands the greater ground. One of our guests from earlier thought that Adeleke might not have that big presence across the West anymore. But you and I were talking about how these votes might be split across these three, Oyebamiji, Adeleke, and Nojim, who seems to be a very interesting entry here. Because while he might not get the biggest share, he can influence the votes anyway. If you had a two-horse race between Oyebamiji and Adeleke, if you were to split it 50-50, well, that's fair. But if you had a third player, you have to split it three ways. Now, if he's not a big contender, he will be dragging votes from either of these two, whether it's Oyebamiji or whether it's Adeleke. Now that that's the case, whose votes do you think he might be stealing, and to the advantage of which other candidates?
Okay, let me do two things quickly. What we have now is the governor seeking a re-election, right? We also have a sitting president seeking a re-election. If we were to go back to the days of Obasanjo, he was in the PDP and the Southwest was in the AD. And because he was seeking re-election...
Who now?
Obasanjo. He was seeking re-election. He did everything within his political capabilities, federal might and all that, to ensure that he was able to turn the fortunes of Osun from AD to PDP. I get me. So in any case, we are having another re-election for the president and re-election for the governor. Now, how these two things may play out will be in the desperation, the political hunger, the willingness to ensure that you snatch as much votes as possible, you know, in support of either the president or his party, you know, to ensure that it is a leverage for the, for the president when it comes to 2027 election. This is important because beyond the, the wishes of, the masses, the political dynamics ensures that politicians will look at things like there will be a groundswell of anti-incumbency alliance. So people who want to align with the federal government will try as much as they can because of their own personal political interest to support a candidate that can help them align with the presidency. That may work against Governor Adeleke. However, Governor Adeleke's name, his family, his political, structure is well rooted in the governance of Osun State. And because of that, he also expects to get a lot of support. So while we understand that this race is between the APC and Accord, ADC, for example, may be the decider in the case, in the sense that even if he secures a little around 100 or 120,000 votes, you may not be able to declare a winner, and then there'll be a runoff. So APC and Accord will do everything possible to not be in that position, because if there's going to be a runoff, it is very unlikely that the ADC will support the APC, because the ADC wants APC out of the presidency. So the best will be for them to support anything or anyone that will give them a better leverage.
That's the ADC now.
That's the ADC.
But unfortunately, the ADC itself seems to be like an APC decider. Because if you factor in the Aregbesola influence, you get a case where they're actually coming from an APC structure. The Accord Party with Adeleke itself, while you don't have PDP on the ballot, it seems to be a mechanism from the PDP. These influences and dynamics are crazy.
Yeah, and that is why for Osun State, unlike other states, it is always a switch between parties. It's not like, okay, you expect APC to win from head to toe every election. It can switch either ways. You're in AD today, and then the next time it's PDP today, the next time is, so, yeah.
Okay, but one final thing. Do you think that the ADC, having that influence from previous APC, is that an implication for or against the votes that it might be able to gather from either the Accord Party or the current APC?
I didn't get that. Come again.
Now, the ADC, like I called it before, is an APC decider, whether you like it or not. It also, however, has influence from Aregbesola. I'm wondering whether that structure follows it, whether that influence still follows it into the ADC.
Well,
just like I'm wondering whether the whether PDP influence follows through into the Accord Party.
Yes, definitely there's an influence of PDP in Accord Party, but Accord Party had to emerge. The governor had to leave PDP for Accord because the PDP was in disarray. So a lot of members of the PDP are now in Accord, right? So it will affect his fortunes, but maybe not as much as it would have been if he were to be in the PDP. And again, not everybody in the PDP just moved or supported the Accord person, Governor Adeleke. Some of them have moved to APC, some of them have moved to ADC. So it's a mix. And so sometimes the same people who have campaigned against a candidate in one party have moved to another party campaigning against another candidate. So people are seeing it's almost the same mobilizers, the same faces. Not surprising anyway that former Governor Oyetola, who is now a minister, is actively, is active in the Osun politics because he needs to make a statement for his own personal political survival. So it's a contest between him and Adeleke earlier on. Adeleke lost to him by a narrow margin of 482 votes or thereabouts, and then Adeleke came back to defeat him with about 28,000 votes. So now he wants to stake back his political relevance in the state. So it's an all-out fight.
Wow.
Well, I know that you have a lot of data and slides for us, Lateef, but before I go into that with you, we still have Ayodeji with us. Ayodeji, we did not forget you. Apologies for keeping you for so long. But now, talking about this election, Governor Adeleke had mentioned that, the voters should give him another 4 years to complete what he has done. Now, we've talked about road, education, healthcare, jobs, local government administration, state finances. Where would you say he has performed strongly, and where would you say his biggest vulnerability?
Well, for those of us who lived here, and I've lived there for over 40 years of my life, I understand the dynamics of the politics. One thing anybody cannot take away from the Demola Adeleke in almost 4 years that he has been in office, which is his area of strength, is infrastructure. There's no doubt in the fact. Nobody can argue, successfully so, that Demola Adeleke has not done well in building infrastructure. I mean roads, bridges, as the case may be. Most importantly, roads and bridges. He has done well. But this major area where he has weakness and which might count against him in this election is the issue of one-sidedness of the project. A lot of accusation lays at the door of the governor that he has almost denied the state. Most political appointees, top government functionaries, the directors and the rest of them are mostly born technocrats who are permanent secretaries and what have you. And even when it comes to shifting political appointments, people from Ede extraction seem to enjoy more prominent political portfolios more than any other people of the state. Even the infrastructure we're talking about, there is this accusation, of course, which is rightly so, because I know that most of the projects are skewed in favor of Ede beyond and above every other major cities in the state. About 8 roads leads to Ede that I know of. Even some of them, about 2 or 3 of them that have never been motorable in the last 10, 15 years. All those roads have been dualized, leading in and out of Ede. So if there's anything that will stand against Governor Adeleke in this election, it might be, just my opinion, it might be a revote by other people or other extraction in the state who might want to make a statement that too much is being done for Ede at their detriment. Another issue that might be an issue of concern or that might stand against Governor Adeleke in this administration, in this election, is the issue of accountability. While people of the state applaud him for the projects that he has done, the roads, the bridges, the question has always been that the processes of awarding those contracts are shrouded in secrecy. There's a number of these projects that you cannot even say this is the contractor to whom it was awarded. This is the amount of money at which it was awarded, or this is the process of award that it took, how competitive it was before such projects are awarded. So these are the issues, this area of strength and issues that might stand against him in the election that is ongoing to elect 2 governors of Osun State going forward.
Well, Ayodeji, while we're talking about all of this, you've mentioned all of this in terms of Governor Adeleke. Now, what would you say Bola Oyebamiji is offering that is different from what Adeleke has done so far?
Just like you asked, I will talk about the strengths and the advantage and the disadvantage that Bola Oyebamiji also has in this election. One major thing that is likely going to stand against Bola Oyebamiji in this election is the barrage of the people that he has worked with. Don't forget that Bola Oyebamiji was Commissioner of Finance under Rauf Aregbesola, where we had the issue of half salary and what have you, and there has been an allegation that he was keenly involved in how the issue of half salary was brought about under the Rauf Aregbesola administration. He also translated from that administration to become Commissioner of Finance under the former governor, Oyetola, and the accusation has been that that government was stingy when it comes to release of funds, when it comes to apportioning finances to projects awarded and what have you. So all of this barrage at what Oyebamiji is carrying into this election is carrying a barrage of disaffection against the 2 principals that he has worked with. But if there's anything that would stand as an advantage for Bola Oyebamiji in this election, it is his exposure. He is seen as a better candidate when it comes to being exposed. He's seen as a better candidate when it comes to academic qualification or educational qualification, as the case may be. He's also seen as someone who is unbiased when it comes to religion. So these are his strengths and his weaknesses, or what stands as an advantage to him and what stands as a disadvantage for him in this election. And there's anything that he has contested with, which I have issues with anyway, is this issue of looking at the weakness of Adeleke when it comes to his background educationally, and of course what has been tagged that is dancing skill, the lack of finance, in quotes now, in governance. These are the weaknesses that Oyebamiji is counting on, upon which he can paint to the people that he will be able to do better. And we hope that all of these strengths and weaknesses will be the determinant factor in how he gets elected to govern the state going forward among these 2 major contenders.
Well, so lastly, before you go, of course, when it comes to Osun election, we're always you ending up in court, an argument as to who's supposed to win, and then, the amount of voters. Now, talking about all the events that has happened prior to now, the violence and, the amount of security that had to come to Osun State for this election, do you think that the outcome of this election will lead us to court again?
Of course, most likely. Since the days of Baba Akande, there has been no election in Osun State that has not ended up at the tribunal and subsequently at the appeal court. And I don't see this as anything that will be different. One of the things that I foresee in this election is that the margin of victory in this election might not be so wide. Don't forget, even the last election where Adeleke won, he won by just about 4,000 votes or thereabout. If care is not taken, the margin of victory in this particular election might be lower than that. So the margin of victory will be very close. And if that be the case, you can be sure that whatever party loses will always come up with this allegation of, oh, it was rigged, oh, some ballots were not counted, oh, some figures are missing. So I don't see this election ending at the ballot. I foresee that this election will still take us to the tribunal and subsequently to other layers of court proceedings.
Well, Ayodeji, Ologun, thank you so much for joining and having this conversation with us. Of course, the elections is still ongoing, and of course, we'll follow up with our correspondents to see how it goes. And by tomorrow, we'll know who wins. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ayodeji. Abdulatif is still with us. Abdulatif, our apologies for keeping you standing while we are relaxed.
He's stuck with us today.
That's fine. That's fine.
I'm not about to say we're letting you go. We're still keeping you there, but I will provide you with a chair when we go on a break. We'll be back to stay with us. We're coming back to observe and also give you analysis of the Osun elections here on the ballot.
Welcome back. Now, as voting continues across Osun State, attention is beginning to move beyond the immediate contest to a much bigger question. What does Osun tell us about the future of elections and democracy in Nigeria? This is an off-cycle governorship election, but its significance goes beyond who eventually wins the governorship. It is another test of Nigeria's electoral system, from voter accreditation and the use of technology to security, transparency, voter confidence, and the conduct of political actors. The experience of voters and election observers today could also provide important lessons ahead of future elections, particularly the 2027 general elections. So how well is the system working, and what should Nigeria be learning from Osun? And joining us are Fred Nzeakor, the lawyer and public affairs analyst, and Nelson Ekujumi, who's also an election observer. Gentlemen, welcome, and thank you for joining the ballot on Breakfast Extra. I think we don't have Nelson yet, but of course he will join us as we continue the conversation. Mr. Nzeakor, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You look dashing with your red hat. I had to say, the red is the nice touch.
Thank you.
Mazino, don't be jealous.
I'm not jealous this time. I love the gentleman.
Well, he's not having a red cap. Mr. Nzeakor, talking about Osun election, we've seen a whole lot of chaotic drama, the killings, and even had to sign peace accord all for this election. Now, today is the day that the voters decide. What's your take as to all the event that has happened so far for this election?
The build-up to the election is extremely disappointing to most Nigerians and to all lovers of democracy around the world because as at the last count, as at yesterday evening, somebody said that up to 40 people have died on account of this election. 40 people. I mean, it's embarrassing, to say the least. And it's extremely worrisome because election is supposed to be a very simple civic responsibility where people cast their vote and then go their way. Cast your vote, decide who you want to lead you as the governor, and then even go your way. But in Osun State, we are not seeing that. Meanwhile, it's just one off-cycle election. We are not talking about the whole general election. Just to elect a governor, we have lost 40 people. Not to talk of properties lost, not to talk of expectations dashed, not to talk of frustrations of the people. And I think it is extremely very, very worrisome. And it does not tell well about our democratic experience
whether we have learned anything from the past, whether we are even making any progress towards the future. Because it's not just embarrassing, but extremely worrisome. The rhetorics moved from what it should be. You want people to elect you to govern them. Your duty is to tell them what you have in stock for them. But your campaign, your manifesto, your program, policies, and all that you want for the people of the state. And not to begin to talk about life and death in an election. If somebody died in an electoral process, how would the family feel? How would the family continue to belong to the state? How would the relations and the dependents and loved ones view democracy? And because if democracy will bring death, they will simply tell you that they are better off in a military regime or in anything other than democracy. Democracy is supposed to bring freedom, bring development, bring happiness and joy. The joy that comes with that freedom. The joy that comes with the decision that you are part and parcel of the process that elect your leader. So that you'll be able to hold that leader accountable. But if democracy is about death, threat of death, then that's not democracy. So what we are seeing in Osun today, and what we have seen in Osun, completely deviates from democracy. Democracy is not just about going for an election. It's a process. The election day like we have today is just a culmination, a climax of that process. The build-up towards that election is what is very important. Now, that build-up is that of, has become a lethal build-up. It has become so traumatic for the people. It has become so dangerous that the people of Osun State will now begin to feel, what is in it for us? Death or what? So I think that if we must learn a lesson in our democratic experience, we must not have a repeat of what went on in Osun. In the 60s, we had the Wild Wild West, yes. And it cost Nigeria the democracy that we had then. What came after it was a military incursion. In 1983, we had similar thing that happened in Ondo State. So many killings, and then again, it cost us the democracy. We can't repeat the mistakes of the past in this day and age.
Well, in terms of the Osun election, the last two governorship elections ended up traveled to court. So have we gotten to the point where in Nigeria we'll vote first, then the second round will be litigation?
Only in Osun State.
No, it's not only in Osun State.
I'm kidding.
No, it's everywhere.
I mean, it's mostly expected in Osun State because of antecedents.
Because of antecedents.
Most people today are already saying that, well, this doesn't finish here.
They've already started preparing the arsenal to go to court.
So is that where we are now, that our vote cannot, decide what we have to keep fighting?
That tells you the level of desperation among the contestants. Because if you are going towards an electoral contest, and from day one, you have made up your mind that if I lose this election, I will go to court. That means you have no confidence in the process. You have no confidence in the fact that the vote of the people may have counted against you. Because if the vote of the people have counted against you, and then you take it that the people have spoken, you don't have to go to court to try to upturn the mandate of the people. And that is why we continue to say that the most critical and the most crucial aspect of this process is that let there be free, fair, and credible election. The build-up has not been free. The build-up has not been fair. The build-up has not given any semblance of credibility. But today, that is the D-Day. Let INEC, especially INEC and security agencies, because out of all the stakeholders in the electoral process, the INEC, the electoral management body, the security agencies that will provide the enabling environment, the voters themselves, because by today, the gladiators become less important than the voters. The voters are more important today because they are going to determine through the public plebiscite, through the use of their thumb, who they want to lead them. So these are the three main stakeholders that should decide what will happen today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nzeakor. I have plenty of questions for you, but I have to introduce Mr. Nelson Ekujumi, who's joining us right now. Nelson, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll come back to you, but we have to take our correspondent, Omolola, who is in Ejigbo, Osun State right now. Let's find out what...
Yes, we have the candidate from the, AAC, governorship candidate for AAC, who has just cast his vote here at, the polling unit for, unit 6, Ward 3 here in Ejigbo, local government area of, Osun State. He'll be speaking with us now. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
You've just cast your vote. Can you tell us, started from the whole process and up to this moment, what are your expectations?
Yeah, we did the accreditation. We voted. It went well, and it's still going well at the polling units here in Ejigbo local government. I'm happy to cast my vote for African Action Congress, which is the ideological-based political party in Nigeria that has come to liberate Osun people, to change the situation of the country, and to give meaning to the life of Osun people.
Let's talk about the electoral body. This is not the first, election. What's your assessment of, the election, especially with the previous machine and all of that? What would you compare to previous election? What's your assessment?
At least if I would talk based on the experience we've had for this election so far, it's been going well, smoothly, and there hasn't been any problem here in the Ejigbo local government.
All right, now let's come back to Nelson Ekujumi, election observer. He joins us now. Nelson, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining. Nelson, you're an observer. Do tell us where you are, what the instance is at this moment, where you are, and then we'll take it on from there, Nelson.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. I'm in 7AC Olugbede in Oshogbo, polling unit 003 at Ayodeji Ward 03 in Osun State.
All right, Nelson, so tell us what the instance is like there, what the turnout is like, what the demographic of people who have come out and what they're telling you, what they're letting you know. Have you observed anything that might be sketchy, or is everything going on okay?
Okay, yes. As at 7 a.m., INEC personnel with the security officials arrived at most polling units, and the voters started trooping out. And as at 8:30 a.m., the crowd at the polling stations were massive here in Oshogbo and Egbedore, where I came from. I started from Egbedore local government. Right now I'm in Oshogbo, I'm in Ataoja, Ese, Olugbede, polling unit 03, Ward 3. And the turnouts in the polling units I visited polling unit 02, I visited polling unit 01. I've also visited, let me read it from my book because I wrote it down. I visited Ward 03, polling unit 09, Ashubiaro in Oshogbo. I visited Ward 05, polling unit 02, Oshogbo Grammar School, Ataoja also. Like I told you earlier on, I started with Dada Estate, Ologun Shayo in Egbedore, polling 02, Ward 10. So in all these polling units I visited, the turnout has been very massive. The voters are conducting themselves peacefully, because all the voters there, most of the voters there, if not all, they know themselves. Like we always say, politics is local. And the decider today, like any other person we know, is not INEC, because INEC's role is to conduct elections, and INEC has never conducted election in a way that shows that they are biased towards any political party. You have seen some of the candidates who are contesting this election, they have been spoken to after casting their votes, and the voters themselves are coming out enthusiastically, and the weather is clement. So far, so good. There has been no incidents anywhere, and we hope it will remain like this till 2:30 official closing time. But from the look of things, if you look behind me, I'm in a polling unit now. The crowd there, I doubt if INEC will be able to close officially at 2:30 because of the people on the queue. And the Beavers machine is working very well. There has been no complaint. People with disability or the aged, nursing mothers, as well as the pregnant men, are being given, a preferential treatment as they're trying the rules and regulations of INEC. So everything is going on well here in Oshogbo.
Nelson, have you noticed if the SDP is aptly represented on the ballot?
I've not checked the ballot papers, but one noticeable feature of this election is that, unlike previous elections, where you get just one party agent, in most of these polling units, you have about 7 to 8 polling agents at the polling stations. So the parties, like we were at a stakeholders meeting with INEC, that was on Wednesday, and INEC made us realize that originally they scheduled 14 political parties for this election, but because of the court order, they had to include SDP based on the judgment of the court. And I believe strongly that SDP must have been included, because INEC has told us that they even had to go and print new ballot papers in compliance with the court judgment. So there's no reason to believe SDP is not on the ballot because the court has directed. Otherwise, INEC will be in contempt of court.
Okay.
And you know the consequences if you disobey the court.
Exactly. Nelson, there's still more to ask. I'm not going to let you go yet. Nelson, let's talk about security. What have you observed about security? There was so much talk about security and the implications for today. Running up to the elections, it was marred by plenty of campaign violence. About 30 people, they say, must have lost their lives. So today, people were very, well, they had their eyes and ears tuned to what security might be like. So I'm wondering what security is like from what you've observed. Does it seem intimidating or does it seem reassuring for the voters?
I was out there monitoring the streets till about 1 a.m. this morning. As at 11:58 p.m. yesterday night, we saw military checkpoints everywhere, NSCDC checkpoints, even police checkpoints. You are not allowed to move. You are told that there's a curfew. So people were detained. Some were detained even at the point where I passed through. But lo and behold, this morning, as at 5 a.m., I came round again. I went into the street. All the checkpoints by the military men had disappeared. I don't know how they did it, but they were nowhere to be found. What you find on the streets now are policemen at polling stations, and policemen on the road. If you don't have any business being on the road, you are turned back if you are not on essential duty. So it tells you clearly that the security presence is right there at the polling stations, but is in the air. If there's any likely threats, I want to believe strongly that they will respond appropriately. But as far as we have seen on the streets, even your cameraman can attest to that if you put them on. You cannot see any military checkpoint on the road. The checkpoints you have on the road is by the police. But we have motorized police patrol, motorized Nigerian Immigration Service patrol, motorized Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps patrol. So they are going everywhere. And where I am is like a local area. The people there, they don't have cause to be afraid, because they know themselves. They've been doing this thing time and time again when every election cycle comes. So everybody is at peace with one another. The security on ground has made it clear to all and sundry that if you know you are for trouble today, better go and hide somewhere. For today, the security architecture is on top of its game.
All right, thank you, Nelson.
Well, thank you so much, Nelson, for that. Let me ask Mr. Nzeakor a question. Mr. Nzeakor, in terms of the SDP now, of course, the court ordered INEC to add SDP to the paper.
Yes.
Few days to election. What would you say that is not going to affect the elections?
In fact, if they fail to act, that is what will affect the election. The whole exercise can be nullified.
So should court be making such changes close?
It is not the duty of the court to work with INEC. It's the duty of the court to dispense justice. It is the duty of INEC to find their own way to solve whatever problem that is endemic in the problem. In the first instance, why did INEC commit SDP? I don't know details. Whether it was as a result of faction or result of one untoward political action or the other, or whether it was a natural omission of the printers, which you call the printers devil. But for whatever it is, any failure of INEC to include SDP has the capacity
to nullify the entire exercise. That's the way it works. So it is better for, and that's why INEC said that they had to quickly bend backwards, discard all the ballot papers they had earlier printed, and print one that will include SDP. Do you know that it is even better for INEC to adjust the date of the election instead of them failing to, instead of their failure to include SDP, especially with the order of court.
Nzeakor, I'm sorry to stop you, but we're having disturbing information from Eden North, where we have our correspondent, Mercy Babajide. She's telling that there might be an instance that is happening, one of an attack. So we're going to go straight to her and find out. Mercy, do tell us what's happening. I hope you're safe, but let's know what's happening currently. I think that's the voice of Mercy. She seems to be engaged with some individuals. There might be something happening there regarding their coverage of the elections. I'm hoping she's okay. We will get the details, but Mercy, if you can hear us, we're wondering if you are safe. Could you give us some details? I hope you can hear me currently, but we do have you currently on the TV sets of everyone who's watching right now. Can we get some detail, Mercy?
What happened? She's fine, she'll be fine. Let's calm down.
Well, I think it goes with the job. We're hearing our correspondent there being consoled by a couple of individuals. So we'll bring more detail when we're able to get it from Mercy, who is engaged at this moment in this instance. But we'll definitely let you know what's happening. Mr. Nzeakor, I'm coming back to you, and I want us to zoom out of all the candidates and the politicking and everything. Let's take away the political leaders, the politics from before. Let's take away the personalities, the parties, the money, the influence, and all of that. Let's talk about democracy as is being presented to us by this instance here, this 2026 Osun gubernatorial elections. Are we seeing a situation where democracy seems to be taking place, where we have a very huge turnout from all our correspondents who we've spoken to, and what we can see, we're seeing people actually turn out? If you use this as a template for 2027, do you think we are moving closer to democracy, or should we wait until after this election and see whether this is going to go the way Osun elections go?
No, what we're seeing is that the problem is not from the people.
So the people are willing?
The people are willing. The people are willing to exercise their franchise. The people are willing to be civil. People are willing to foster the ideals of democracy. The people are willing to ensure that that freedom that comes with democracy is entrenched. The people are willing to see that their votes count, that they participate in determination of who their leaders are. The problem lies with, one, the politicians themselves, the gladiators. And what is the problem? Their desperation. Desperation to win at all costs is a major problem. The second problem lies with the security agencies when they become partial in their approach to issues. When they fail to create that enabling environment for people to operate. While we were trying to link up with the Mercy, we saw patrol of the military. And that gave me some comfort.
Okay.
All right? That even if there was a problem, I mean, they had arrived early enough to stop it. And like Nelson said, there are motorized patrol of other security agencies moving from one point to another to forestall any untoward action by hooligans who may want to undermine the peace and the tranquility of the electoral process. So the next place where you have the problem is the activities of the electoral management body, the INEC. And we keep asking INEC, for whatever it is worth, they should avoid anything that will make them undermine the mandate of the people. But it's a sacred mandate. That determination of leadership is a sacred mandate. Okay. And once it is given to anybody, it should not be undermined. And once it is not undermined, that's how our democracy begins to take root. Okay. So that the gains we have today can be applied tomorrow. And we keep improving. Just like technology is improving affairs and lives of human beings, the democracy must continue to improve the welfare
and affairs of Nigerians.
Democracy also means security, security of votes, the assurance that my vote counts. Since you touched on the subject of security agents, you said that you were comforted when you saw the
motorized
the army
yes.
there. And I'm wondering what you think about the influence of these security agencies on the outcome of elections, whether it's the police, whether it's the army, whether it's the NSCDC, or the suggested Amoteku by Adeleke, which was shut down eventually.
It depends on...
That he suggested it,
yes,
and that it was shut down. There are implications to if they were allowed to take part in the security architecture for the elections. However, the police is involved. The police is a federal might, and we all know how that could also influence things. So do you think that that is a democratic approach, or do you think that INEC ought to have its own unique security agency that is its purview is simply just elections?
You see, at the level where we are today in our democratic experience, when they say it is nascent, well, they can run away with it because for me, I feel that they should have overgrown its nascency and by now would have started taking root. The presence of the military or the security agencies is dependent on how they are deployed. Are they deployed for peace or are they deployed for intimidation? If they are deployed for intimidation, that's why we begin to talk about the federal might. Because the only institution or authority that can deploy them for intimidation is the federal might, is the federal government, because they are accountable to the federal government. And it is the fear of that wrong deployment. I use the word wrong because deploying them for intimidation is wrong deployment. The fear of that wrong deployment is what has made some others to begin to suggest, can we now deploy Amoteku? Amoteku cannot take over the functions of the police. Because even for now, Amoteku is at best a vigilante organization. We are talking about state policing structure, which has not been constitutionally enabled. So as we speak, we don't have a state policing organization. We have vigilantes. We have all forms of informal organizations that secure the people that are not stricto sensu police. So, but the Nigerian police has the capacity, as an organization to secure the people at times like this. Over 30,000 of them have been deployed to a state of Osun that has just 30 local government areas. I think it is over-deployment.
Okay. Now, good that you said that, and this is where I was actually going to. You've just landed into my little trap here. It's not a trap, I'm kidding. But that we have 13,000 deployed to Osun.
Yes.
And we're using the Osun instance as a template for democracy for 2027. This is a nationwide election. Do you think that the police would be able to secure, comfort, not intimidate the electorate come 2027?
Again, depending on how they are deployed.
Do we even have the manpower?
If they are deployed to intimidate, then their function will be at variance with the expectations of the people. If they are deployed to secure the people, there will be enough. How many people make trouble at elections? How many? Very few. Majority of the people are for peace. They want to go cast their vote and go home. Some others who are politically interested in the outcome will stay behind. Ensure that their votes are secured, ensure that the counting and the rest of them are done the way they are expected to do. But the majority of the people are peaceful. So the duty of the police is now to find out those who are not peaceful. And they are a handful.
Before or after or during the elections? That's another question.
It is because if the government is interested in not deploying them for intimidation, the government will enable them to go against those troublemakers. But if the government deploys them for intimidation, then they will now protect the troublemakers in favor of the government that deploys them. That's where the difference lies. And that's why Nigerians continue to say that the institutions of state must be stronger than the individuals. Because the police will be serving the entire country and not just a few minute interests of politicians who themselves have the authority to deploy. Such authority should not be abused because wrong deployment is an abuse of the authority embedded in the office of either the commander-in-chief or that of the inspector general of the police or the minister or anybody for that matter who has such authority of decision-making towards coercive actions of the law enforcement agencies. But if they are there to protect the lives of the people, protect the electoral process, protect the electoral materials, protect the election management body and their personnel, don't forget that these are young people that are handling the election. In times past, so many youth corps lost their lives, on account of this wrong deployment. So we cannot tolerate or allow such wrong deployment going forward, except we don't want to have our democracy take any footing in Nigeria.
Right. Talking about democracy growth, we are 66 years old and we're in another election cycle. What we could see from one of the local government that the beavers was having issues in identifying people. We're still in that point where beavers is still an issue. Wouldn't you say that we've gotten to a point where we need to consider other means where we're not having issues? Because it seems like when those issues occur, that is where conversation of vote buying or not counting properly and all whatnot comes up. What would you say the best way to approach these constant technical glitches should be?
The beavers is a piece of technology. It's a technological device. And any piece of technological device can develop issue anytime. But the question is, how many of them develop such issue? And then is there any backup? This is a one-off election.
There is backup now, isn't there?
INEC should have backup, not just backup by beavers. There's also backup by manual accreditation, which if every other thing fails, that one cannot fail, because that one is handled by human beings. So I don't think that the problem will be that of beavers. The problem comes from when you talk about vote buying. Even when the beavers perform, they say buy votes. How do they do that? They either buy votes before or during election. The one before doesn't pay well because the voter can change his mind at that booth.
And collect your rights and still vote.
The one that pays the one that pays the politician well, which they don't want to toy with, is the one they buy during voting. How do they do that? They will come ask you, because for every polling booth, there are agents, political agents. When you vote, you kind of raise up your voting ballot paper. They will see that you have thumbed where their party is. They will mark for you. Because these are, every politics is local. Where you have registered to vote, you are within the community that know you and you know them. Oh, Kehinde has voted for so and so party. The party's agent will note Kehinde's name. Another person will vote. Emeka has voted for so and so party. Emeka's name will be noted. Haruna has voted, they will note. They will compile it and go and pay them somewhere. In some cases, the voters will say, money for hand. Vote for your paper. Then, by the time they now collect the money in advance, they will go and vote. That is where, when they fail to vote that party that gave them money in advance, fight will come out.
Yes.
And that fight, when it comes out, the police will always be there to settle the fight. So the question now is, if we want to stop vote buying, which we have identified as antithetical to electoral integrity, we must ensure that those people who register names are frustrated, those people who thumbprint and show, because if you don't show, there's no way you will convince the payer that you voted for him or her or his party or her party. So you thumbprint and show. If the police in that polling unit is the policeman is able to frustrate them from showing, then you are gradually killing vote buying process, because there's no other way. The ones they paid before, because sometimes they go throughout the night, pay the people, and then say, this is it where you are going to vote for.
Yeah. Mr. Nzeakor, before we continue that conversation, right now, as you can see on your screen, we have the APC candidate, Bola Oyebamiji, casting his vote.
In Irewole, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe we'll confirm that location shortly. Okay, so of course that is Irewole local government, and I think he's casting his vote now. Let's just watch and see the audio if there's anything that will be said.
It's working.
More visuals there from Irewale, where the candidate Oyedekun-Alli is supposed to be casting his vote. We'll continue to bring you details from there as we get them come to us here in the studio. But we still have in the studio here with us Mr. Nzeakor. Mr. Nzeakor, Fred Nzeakor, we want to know very detailed when it comes to the Nigerian voters now. I'm wondering whether the way that they choose their governance has changed. Are we seeing that from the elections here? Are they becoming more particular? If you remove the ethnicity, the personality, the money, the political machinery from this dynamic here, do you think that Nigerian voters are focused on the issues and performance of their leaders, and is that influencing their votes?
With this level of low level of literacy?
Literacy, how does that play in?
It plays because a literate person will understand and interrogate issues. An illiterate will not be able to interrogate issues. He will go by the wind. He will go by the dancing on the podium. He'll be convinced by the...
Dancing on the podium, are you referring to Ayodeji?
No. Every politician dances on the podium.
Ayodeji dances more.
Yeah, no. Ayodeji dances even in his house, everywhere, even in the churches. Even our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, remember his characteristic dance that he went down like this. And Oshiomhole was jumping up on the podium. Everybody, you have to dance on the podium. You have to, one, the dancing one gives impression that you are still strong. Two, it gives impression that you align, identify with the people. And that it is the same reason for why they eat corn. You saw where Oyedekun-Alli was trying to pet one old woman and then listen to her. Well, if, for example, he's elected a governor, will he listen to the woman the same way? That is the question. And that is why when we say, if you have the nature of compassion to listen that way, are you going to listen that same way when you become the leader? That's what makes Peter Obi different from any other person. I'm not trying to converse for him, but I tell you that what the difference, and that's why we're talking about, let every leader be compassionate. If you listen to the people during campaign, listen to them after campaign.
You can know, you understand what it means. And all the news have been uploaded onto the platform of INEC. I don't know why we are going, denying us of having the party agent now. So maybe towards the end of the election process, I will still address the press and let the people know how far we go with it.
So let's, how would you compare the INEC?
Yes, what I'm saying is part of the preparation of in the study of the INEC. When you requested for party agents, you requested for the party to upload their party agents, and we did. I don't understand how and why the party agent will not be given tag. So it's one part of the process. So if at the end of the day we do not have this, then the process is very questionable. And for now, I will be silent on it till when we come to the end of the whole exercise.
However, sir, are you confident that you win this election?
Oh, it is to be a free and fair election with no rigging, manipulation, a level playing ground. I trust my God that I'm going to win the election.
Thank you very much.
Sir, finally, sir, someone questioned that at your own polling units, they had to arrest people buying votes.
Here, well, you are just coming. Definitely it cannot be my party. We are not into that. We canvass for the people, we let them know our programs, and that is what we do. Vote buying is out of it. I have never in my life buy votes. People will decide whom they want, and I think it should be very fair enough for them to have the right to choose whom they prefer as the candidate or as the governor of the state, instead of going through the number of billions and dollars that have been rolling in the state for a while. It's a lot, and it's worrisome and disturbing, and it's a threat to democracy. Democracy is supposed to give room for people to choose their representative freely, without intimidation, harassment, or inducement. Why do we need to induce the voters because we want to rule? Are you sure of yourself? Are you coming with the program that are very good for the people? I think people will judge me based on my program manifesto
and what I want to deliver for the state. Definitely my party is not involved in vote buying.
If you do win, and how would you carry the people who didn't vote for you? How would you carry them along to push it forward?
I'm to govern the whole state. There won't be difference between who votes and who did not vote. Don't forget, some people are even still at home. Did not even come out at all. They are to be under the governance of the state. So there won't be any difference. I will rule generally over everybody that lives in the state.
Well, so what you just watched was the ADC candidate Najim Salam in Ejigbo, who casted his vote and also addressed the press of his concerns of what he planned to do for the state if he's elected the governor. While we wait to get more visuals from that, we still have Mr. Fred Nzeakor with us with his red cap to discuss more about the future of democracy in Nigeria and how it pans out. Of course, they were having amazing man-to-man conversation here in terms of
something that
the
Mr.
Osun State.
Nzeakor said regarding literacy that I really wanted us to double down on.
I agree.
If you're talking about literacy, I'm wondering what group of people. Would it be the artisans, the older folk, the market women? And then I'm also wondering, out of all the candidates that we have, especially from the big three, which one of them you think is taking advantage of this group of maybe educated, uneducated, aware, non-aware, or not aware folk?
Maybe the right terminology would be political awareness.
Political awareness.
Yeah, so that people will not misunderstand what we mean. Because the simple explanation of illiteracy is somebody who is unable to read and write. But a PhD holder who sells his vote is politically illiterate. A professor who rigs election on behalf of a school cert holder is politically illiterate. So we can now narrow it down to issue of awareness. Are the people aware of what they are supposed to do? Are the people aware of their responsibility while voting? Are the people aware that their actions at electoral process will determine their future on the next 4 years? That is very critical and that is very, very important. And then that lack of awareness or the political illiteracy is capitalized on by virtually all the gladiators, all the political parties. They want to take advantage of the people. They want to harness their low level of awareness. And that is why instead of them to interrogate issues, they will just go and just rely on rhetorics, dance on the podium, make vague promises.
Mr. Nzeakor, I apologize to butt in right there, but let's just cross over to our correspondent.
Education from primary school and secondary school. At the same time, I've told the people of the state that I'm going to give free medical services to the children of 1 year to 18 years. At the same time, I promised them that the kids, the children, will be enjoying the free meal in the primary school. At the same time, for antenatal care is going to be free for our women. Also, the first year in office, I promised the women folk that I'm going to empower them with minimum of $1 billion to boost the economy. And I promised the state as well that under my watch, there will be 24/7 electricity in the state. By God's grace, agriculture will be the cornerstone, will be the major focus of my government to boost the IGR of the state and develop our area as well.
But you have mentioned too many things you're doing for them. But which one will you be focusing on in the first 100 days?
The first 100 days, I'm going to recruit 20,000 youths into the government. The first 100 days, I'm going to hold.
Well, I hope we'll be able to get more conversations as to what's happening in the election in Osun State. Of course, we still have here with us Mr. Fred Nzeakor to talk more about the future of democracy. Mazino.
Oh, thank you very much, Queen. That's nice of you. Now, talking about voter education.
Yes.
Whose responsibility? As we look forward to 2027, what are the mistakes that might be made here?
Yes.
Is it INEC's sole responsibility, or is it the parties? If it's the parties, isn't that an avenue for them to push their own agenda? What are you seeing for 2027?
A joint responsibility of all stakeholders, led by INEC, followed by political parties themselves. Political parties must educate the people. They have that duty to educate the people. Then non-governmental organizations, including faith-based organizations. Towards the build-up of 2023 election, I remember that churches and mosques drummed up a lot of appeal to Nigerians to go and get their PVC so that they will be able to vote. There's nothing wrong, there's nothing stopping them from following that line again. Faith-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, religious groups, even professional associations like the NBA, the ICANN, the rest of them, the market women, the National Union of Road Transport Workers, all organizations. Because at every level you have leaders. Leaders are not only political leaders, business leaders, community leaders, all of them are involved in shaping the mindset of the people and then in mobilizing the energies of the people towards national development. So every leader that has one opportunity or the other to lead must lead well. And part of it, in terms of political awareness, is telling the people what they should do. Tell them what they should do. Go get your PVC, get involved in the electoral process, because the turnout in our voter turnout in Nigeria is embarrassingly poor. At every election, you begin to look at 25%. The highest we have achieved have been 32, 33, between 32 and 35%. Whereas in Ghana here, they recorded in their last election 67% of the voter turnout. How do you calculate voter turnout? The number of people that come to legitimately vote vis-a-vis the number of people that register to vote. 90 million people register in Nigeria, less than 30 million will come to vote. It's embarrassingly low. Right. So, and that is where all these stakeholders should take responsibility. Ensure that the people have confidence in the process. That confidence usually gets browbeaten by the result of the election. And that is where we begin to say, when the votes of the people count, the next election cycle, he or she who did not participate in the last election will struggle to be part of it. But when the vote of people don't count, then it becomes a matter of that's what they do. And that is a very dangerous, very, very dangerous narrative. Oh, will they allow our vote? Will it work?
I have a question for you on that, but we have to go to our correspondent, if I'm not mistaken. But just so I don't forget, let me tag it count versus court. And we'll come back.
Count versus court.
I also have a security question to ask. Well, let's go over to let's go over to Messi Babajide, our correspondent who is in Ede North. Messi, can you go ahead and tell us what's happening? I think earlier you mentioned that there was like a fight outbreak where you were, and I think you've moved safely somewhere else. If you can give us an account of what happened, please.
Okay, where we were at the governor's polling unit, and there were lots of crowds, of course, because of the beaver issues. In the process of me recording, there was a guy that kept on agitating, and I told him to identify himself because I was confident about the fact that he was not an INEC official, so I was wondering why he was giving the beavers to handle. And then, in the process of me asking him to identify himself, he told me to identify myself. I brought out my ID card, and then fight broke out. It was just unnecessary, and of course I'm a female. They thought I wouldn't be able to stand my ground, but then my camera guy and the digital guy with me had to come in, but then for security reasons we had to leave because I think they were watching us live and they deployed lots of army and security officials there. But then we are still somewhere in Ede, in front of the Timi Agbale Palace, where there is another polling unit, and before we got here we heard that the beavers had issues. It's quite crowdy here also. We had lots of crowd here. There's large voter turnout, and it would interest you to know that there's equally two different polling units just side by side, but then it looks like one has a longer queue than the other one. So this one with the longer queue, we were able to get someone from there, Mrs. Bilikisu, who I will be panning to. Ekasoma. Ekaroma. Adeyemo Bilikis Bolanle. Okay. Báwo ni ètò ìdìbò ṣe lọ níbí?
ètò ìdìbò ó lọ nírọ̀wọ́rọ̀sẹ̀ àmọ́ differs kíní tí wọ́n gbé wá pé ká fi dìbò ó fún wa ní problem a ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ ń rí bòdì ni ó ṣe píìkì díẹ̀ ni ó dà wá láàmú gan anytime tá a bá ti fẹ́ dìbò differ tán máa ń gbé wá síwájú ààfin yìí ó máa ń fún wa ní problem.
àti aago mélòó lẹ ti débi.
àti 7 làwa ti débi báyìí káwọn IPO tó dé àwọn INEC officer àti wà ń bí tá a ti tò kó tó di pé wọ́n dé ṣùgbà tí wọ́n dé náà a yẹ gbogbo nǹkan wọn wò la bẹ̀rẹ̀ iṣẹ́.
ó tó aago mélòó kẹ́ tó dìbò.
ó tó bíi 9 ká tó lè rí bòdì aago 9 ká tó rí bòdì ká tó bẹ̀rẹ̀ bòdìdó bá tún ti di bíi 4 ní dífà yẹn tó ń bẹ̀rẹ̀ problem kan tó wá pe ẹni tí ó jẹ́ ọ̀gá wọn ló wá yẹ dífà yẹn wò ló wá tún ṣàlàyé fún wọn ló ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ ń píìkì díẹ̀díẹ̀ bọ̀ ó slow o kò lè jẹ́ kí bò wa ó tètè parí ẹ̀rí ẹ̀wò bẹ́ẹ̀rù ṣe pọ̀ tó lórí láyìn tí wọ́n ti dìbò àwa díẹ̀ láti rí bòdì ṣó bó ṣe jẹ́ nìyẹn kọ́lọ́run fún wa ní ó fàánú gbà wá kó rí bá a ṣe fẹ́ ẹ̀ ń tà ń fẹ́ kọ́lọ́run jẹ́ kó wọlé.
Okay, I'll be translating what she said. She said she got here around 7 a.m. and she couldn't vote until about 9 a.m. and that's because the beavers is quite slow. She said it was really, really slow, and I'm going to pan over to someone else and ask them questions as to when they got here. Karoma. Yes, aago mélòó lẹ ti dé bí láàárọ̀.
Aago mẹ́jọ.
Aago mẹ́jọ. Kí ló ṣẹlẹ̀ tí ìlà yẹn fi gùn tẹ́lẹ̀?
Engine ò ṣiṣẹ́.
Engine ò ṣiṣẹ́. Okay. I'll be translating what she said. She said she's been here since 7 a.m. and she's on this queue, or she's been on this queue for this long because the beavers equally is not working. But then I think we'd have to ask the INEC people questions. I don't know if they will be willing to take questions right now, but we can see the ballot box and we can see that there are quite a number of people that have voted. But then, like Mrs. Bilikisu said, she said 1 minute it's working, the next minute it's not working. Ekaro. Kí lorúkọ yín?
Murtala Blavis.
Aago mélòó lẹ ti débi láàárọ̀?
Láti gẹ́bí 7 láti wà ń bí o.
Kí ló ṣẹlẹ̀ tẹ́ ẹ̀ tí lè dìbò látago 7 a.m. tẹ́tí wà ń bí?
Nẹ́tíwọ̀kì ni máa ń darúkọ, ó ti sọ àgànṣe gan, àtàwọn àti wà ń bí, ó ti sọ wa, wàláì. Even gan bẹ́ẹ̀ ti jẹ́ ìjà àrùn bẹ́sẹ̀ wáyé. Tẹ́ bá rí báyìí, pété mo mú dání, látàrí pé kò bá lè fún mi ní lájì tó péye, wàláì ó ti sú mi.
All right, I'll be translating what he said. He said he's been here since 7 a.m. and he's not been able to vote because, of course, the Beavers Mansion is down. And he said he had to take some drink before because he's not had breakfast for him to be able to, of course, stand this long on the line. And let's take into cognizance that it's already 2 minutes past 11 a.m. If they've been here since 7 o'clock in the morning and the Beavers are not working, one would wonder what exactly is happening. So we will be taking it over from here, and we'll still stay here for about a few more minutes before we head over to the next polling unit. Over to you in the studio.
To you, Mercy. I want to know about the details from what happened earlier when we heard that little commotion from the governor's. I think that was that was at the governor's office, the polling ward there in Ede. Please, can you give us more detail? When the security agencies came to you guys, did they identify anything untoward happening? And why did you people have to leave? Did they ask you to leave, or did you just use discretion there? But more importantly, what action did they take regarding the person whose identity you were trying to confirm?
Not the security operatives, but people that were on ground there. Okay. Of course, we couldn't identify them. It was us versus them. And then talking about the crowd of them against us, it was a larger number. So for security reasons, we had to take the initiative to leave, even though they kept on insisting. Some persons equally said, oh, we've been there for over 5 hours. Why have we been there for over 5 hours? And we kept asking the same question. Do we not have the right to stay anywhere we want to stay for that long? And they couldn't answer that question, of course. But then you know how it is when it comes to elections, for security reasons, or for our security reasons, because of course the crowd was more than us, even though we stood our ground for over 45 minutes and there were lots of back and forth, but we equally had to leave.
Okay. Mercy, on a lighter note, who's your camera guy and how big is he? I hope he's able to give you some protection, because yeah, you might be needing it today. But thank you very much for standing your ground and also using your initiative. Thank you, Mercy. I think we come back to the studio here with Mr. Nzeakor.
I think I know you have a question for him. Did you say Cotton?
Did I take what now?
You have a question.
I do have lots of questions.
But before you
of questions, if you let me go ahead, I'll continue.
Before talking about the 25,000 personnel that was deployed to Osun State.
30,000, over 30,000.
Over 30,000 that was deployed to Osun State. If we look at the broader picture, you know, Nigerians and, you know, lamentation as to we have insecurity other places. Do we have this amount of people? Because most times we say we don't have enough. We've heard where they said, you know, we need to employ more people. Now, would you say that 30,000 for just one election is an overkill, or is a way to show us that come 2027, what happened in Osun in terms of over 40 people dying will not repeat itself in January?
It's an embarrassment. It's a very big embarrassment that a mere simple civic exercise will draw such a number of security operatives. What for? 30 commissioners of police. That means one commissioner per local government in Osun State just to elect a governor. One day affair. You just cast your vote, you go. In other parts of the world, you even cast your vote from the comfort of your home. We are talking about electronic voting. If we are still at this level, at this age, in 2026, when shall we join the rest of the international community?
When we become adults.
When shall we become compliant to the realities of the now? Now we are talking about beavers. There's complaint about vote, but the beavers are malfunctioning. Is that not an embarrassment? The beavers was introduced. We started with a card reader in 2015, and then we graduated to the beavers. They're supposed to be more sophisticated, and then today we are saying the beavers are malfunctioning. The question is, didn't INEC test run them in just one state election? INEC has at least not less than 60,000 beavers machines. So wouldn't INEC have test run these beavers and then select the ones that were perfectly in order? So why would they malfunction? These are the things that agitate the minds of the people. And again, from what your correspondent indicated, near the polling booth of the governor, the optics are not right. The optics are not right. They will say, okay, so even if the beavers will malfunction, why would he be the one that is close to the governor?
And why is somebody unidentified?
And why would somebody that is not identified as an INEC officer be the one handling the beavers machine? Those things will raise a lot of suspicion. And when the suspicions get so high, it will become a problem.
And will end us back in court.
It will end up not just in court, but even the fracas there. Why would people kick and shove because they came to vote in an election? Why? Okay, why would people queue up in the line and then they say the beavers is very slow? Meanwhile, this is a time-bound process that by 2:30 is over. Although the law provides that anybody who has been accredited
must vote.
By that 2:30 must vote. Or anybody who had come on the line by that 2:30 must vote. Because what they are doing is simultaneous voting, accreditation, and voting. Immediately you are accredited, you are handed over the ballot box, the ballot paper, you go to the cubicle, vote, and go. So anybody who is on the line as at that 2:30 should be allowed to vote. Otherwise, it becomes a technical disenfranchisement, which is not allowed or contemplated by the Electoral Act. But then, why would the beavers begin to give this type of push and kick? No, it's not supposed to. Meanwhile, this beavers machine, by its calibration, is even supposed to work like a smartphone. It's a smart piece of device. It's supposed to work like a smartphone. It has the capacity to even send the results electronically to the portal. We have not even started asking about that one. Because that's the next issue. Will the election results go to the portal directly? Or will there be a manual collation of results? These are things that INEC are not giving clear answers to. And if you don't plan to fail, automatically you are, if you don't plan, then you're already planning to fail. If you don't plan ahead of time, you are technically planning to fail. So if INEC did not make such provision about how results will be transmitted, and then last minute you begin to say, oh, we cannot transmit, the portal is not there, oh, no, that means we have learned no lessons at all.
Mr. Nzeakor, let's come back to the parties and the individuals now, the candidates. I'm seeing a pattern here where we see and hear less and less about the traditional powerhouses, especially like the PDP, who are absolutely absent here. We still have the APC, but we can see them being, well, the contention is really big. Accord Party and ADC, which are newer parties on the block, and they have their own systems, their own style, their own crowd. So are we finally beginning to see, and might this have a take on the 2027 elections, where there's less focus on the major powerhouses like we had it from before, and at least a little being shown to the other parties? We have 14 parties about.
15 now.
15
15 now, yes.
And we only really hear about the big three. Even right here, we're also guilty of that. So let's try and bring in some of these small ones, the Alliance Party and all the rest. Do we see them making breach when it comes to coming out of the surface in 2027 elections with things that are happening around the Osun elections now?
For every election, even in the United States, some people even think that it's only the Democrats and the Republicans are the parties in America. There are many more parties in America. You can describe them as mushroom parties, the same way you would describe some of these political parties in Nigeria as mushroom. The big ones are there, obviously, like you said, the three big ones are there. And what has made Accord big is because that is the party on which platform the sitting governor is running for his re-election. That was what made it big. Otherwise, before then, Accord Party was not big in Osun State. Then PDP that used to be big in Osun State is almost non-existent. The current governor came to power on the ticket of the PDP, on the platform of the PDP. But today, PDP is almost non-existent in Osun. And then the APC is there, made big because APC is the party at the center, and APC had been in power in Osun State. Then what's the next party? The next party is the ADC, the new party, the new kid on the block, made strong because of the people that have moved into the ADC. The ADC as a party is not entirely new in the Nigerian political environment, but it has become formidable today on account of the people that have populated the ADC. These are the three big ones. There are others. Even the NDC that is also gaining momentum across the federation has not gained such momentum in Osun. All right? Maybe by the next cycle of election, they may do that. What makes a political party is the people in that party. And as a matter of fact, political party is an association of people. So if the party or the association is peopled by heavyweights that are and that have the capacity to draw more crowd to them, then the party becomes big. If the party does not have such people, then the party becomes a featherweight. So there are no, you don't wish strength to a political party. You only draw strength from the people that you're able to attract.
Still using this as a template for 2027, what are the implications of the absence of the PDP in these elections?
No. I mean, we all know that as we approach 2027 election, PDP is no longer what it used to be. So if you use PDP as a template, then that tells you that what happened in 2023 will not be the same thing that will happen in 2027. Because PDP had been so badly decimated, so badly factionalized, decimated, abandoned, abdicated, and then is now a whipping child. The PDP that used to be the biggest party in Africa, it has now gone into the level of one of the minor political parties. And then after the 2027 election, then we'll now know whether even PDP will be able to still be an INEC register of parties or whether it will no longer be. Because the realities are on ground that people have abandoned PDP due to the problem caused to PDP by members of PDP.
And this is why Adeleke himself actually...
It's the major reason why he had to leave.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, did he take any of that PDP structural influence with him to the Accord Party?
Of course.
Yeah, you say of course, but while he defected, and he asked some of his members to defect as well, not all of them did. And still, even as governor, he still had to contend with a situation where the LGAs were still federal run. So I'm wondering whether...
No, the issue in Osun is manifestly different from the realities in other states. Adeleke himself alluded to that fact because of the presence of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who himself is an Osun man. Adeleke himself said so. That the cousin of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is the current minister for blue economy, the former governor of that state, is the one creating problems. And that is the one that is drawing strength from the president and creating problems in Osun. And that was why he now called Mr. President to call his cousin to order. So, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, by the ways of Adeleke, is an Osun man, not a Lagos man.
Now, it's sounding like a more personal relationship situation, but...
the whole Osun thing is all personal. Everybody's trying to prove something.
I mean,
at the end of the day.
If the governor said so, who am I to,
and you see, that's
who am I to say otherwise?
That's a problem, Queen.
And then there's no rebuttal anywhere. There's no rebuttal, both from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and from the Minister of Blue Economy. Why am I forgetting his name?
We'll get the details on it. The producers will help us
Mr. Fred Nzeakor, if we continue this conversation truly, me and
Does he have to go? I don't want him to go.
We'll sit here till 2:30 for when the election is actually over. But I want to say thank you for joining us, having this amazing conversation as to where our democracy is headed to at 66 years old. We are still the youth.
Well, when you say, sorry, my dear sister, when you say we are 66 years old, we are, as a nation, as an independent nation, we cannot claim to be 66 years old in democracy.
Right.
That's the difference, because half of those 66 years were under the military. Yeah. But at least we have had unbroken 27 years of democracy, which of course is enough for us to have a fertile ground for democratic prosperity and the future of Nigeria.
Is that Boyega Oyetola? That's the minister for...
Yeah, exactly, Boyega Oyetola. Yes. Thank you.
I told you we'll find his name.
Thank you. Boyega Oyetola.
Just on time.
Yes, that's him there. Adeleke said he is the one that is causing problem in Osun, because he's drawing power from his cousin, the Mr. President. Well, we just pray that everything goes well in Osun State, and most importantly, the vote of the people should count, because that mandate, that vote of the people is sacrosanct. Moshood Abiola died for it, and it should not be wasted, and it should not be in vain.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Fred Nzeakor, for joining us and having this conversation. We do
Please come again quick. We always enjoy your conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Well, you've had it from Mr. Fred Nzeakor, of course, our correspondent all through the day, and of course, a fight in Ede North. We still have a few hours before the election comes to a close, and hopefully everybody will be able to vote, and INEC will be able to sort out the BVAS situation. Now, let's go on a short break. When we return, we'll continue the conversation with the Osun election. Stay with us. Welcome back. Of course, this is New Central Breakfast Extra. Now, voting is well underway across Osun State, and as voters continue to turn up at polling units, we are paying close attention to the quality of the voting experience. Now, beyond simply getting to the polling unit, voters need to be able to complete the process without unnecessary barriers. For persons with disabilities, elderly voters, pregnant women, and other vulnerable groups, accessibility can determine whether they are able to participate at all. Now, to help us assess what is happening on the ground, we are joined once again by Jake Ekpele, who's the CEO and founder of TAF Africa. Jake, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, I think we have Brenda Awungwam, who's also in the Situation Room, to give us report as to what's happening in the election. Mr. Jake, before I come to you, let me ask Brenda. Brenda, so far, it's 11:25 a.m. and election kind of started about 8:30 this morning. What has been the situation so far? What have you observed?
Thank you so much. So we have observed that there is a large turnout of voters. We managed to visit 4 polling units before 11 a.m. and all the 4 polling units had massive turnouts. We had a lot of men, we had a lot of women. In most polling, in 3 out of the 4 polling units, there were more women voters than men. Only in 1 polling unit that we saw men equal women in terms of the number. We also noticed that we had a lot of vulnerable groups there. We had persons with disabilities, which my brother Jake will talk about. We also had women who had their babies strapped around them, women with infants. And then we had older groups and senior citizens. And what impressed me the most was while they were waiting for the machine to be ready for accreditation, they gave them seats to sit down. The older persons were given seats to sit down first before they started accreditation. So this, all in all, shows that CVE, voter education, is working because people are aware of their rights, and the INEC personnel there are also aware of how different groups are treated.
Well, thank you so much, Brenda, for that. Now, Mr. Jake, you've been there so far. Would you say, in terms of people with disability, have they had access to be able to vote this morning?
Well, again, it's important to underscore and underpin the early assessment is not a general assessment. So what we have seen earlier on seems impressive. There's been a huge turnout of people, but I'm also aware that in Osun, the people are politically aware, and this kind of situation plays out. They've maintained the same track record throughout all the election cycle. So we cannot conclude that this may be the situation throughout the day. However, it's important to also analyze to say that, yes, there's been impressive inclusion in the polling units that we went to. Not only that, the electoral officer seems to be aware of what to do. And we saw a few resources, inclusive resources in the polling unit, which is also very impressive. Another impressive aspect of this election is the communication, the establishment of the effective communication between the hierarchy in INEC and us, the observers. For instance, this morning I got a call from INEC chairman from Abuja, and I took it upon myself to distribute that call. So he was able to speak to a number of other observers, including Brenda, Festus, the former INEC National Commissioner, Shemu on channels, so there's been that effective communication line from INEC leadership, which is very good. But like I said, it shouldn't be just Jake. It should be across board. And I think the INEC chairman should also reach out to other observers and commentators so that he can get their own assessment of the situation. Interestingly, another very interesting scenario is how INEC have been able to manage the crisis. Generally, it's commonplace to see that despite the SDP court pronouncement, their inclusion, we thought, will throw the spanners in the works. We didn't see much of that happening. So INEC was able to manage that crisis well. The chairman, Professor Joash, they said to me he hasn't slept for like 2 days. Well, that's the sacrifice we render in nation building.
Well, while all that is going on, I do recall that we had one of our correspondents actually speak to someone with disability, and he also told that he was rather treated fairly, put first in line and led to make his voting in and out. I'm wondering whether this carries out through all other polling units. We did get some confirmation in the morning where elderly people were giving access first, and Well, once again, we hope that that is across all the wards in the Osun elections. I'm more concerned about the conduct of the electoral officers and whether they have been doing their job, especially with that one instance we had with our correspondent being asked to vacate the premise, or at least using initiative to vacate the premise after it was getting
I think we have Brenda. Brenda, are you back with us?
Brenda?
Yes, I'm very much here.
Awesome. Welcome back. I was asking earlier, based on the report from our correspondent, we saw that some local government areas had issues with the BVAS machine. And we know that INEC had mentioned that, they had enough backup to make sure that this election runs smoothly. Have you heard anything from the INEC officials as to what is going on with the BVAS machine?
We haven't spoken to them yet. We will proceed for a second round of roving around after an hour or so. But so far, the polling units that we visited, like I mentioned earlier, we're just 4 in number and within Osogbo. And all the 4 of them, their BVAS machines were working at the time we were there. And then I must even commend the what is going on at the particular school. I think it's called Salvation School, because the voters that got there said that within 2 hours, they had finished accreditation and they were able to vote, and they were just sitting around waiting for the votes to be counted. Now, that is impressive. It shows that the machine is working. So within Osogbo, we've gone to 4 places, and all the machines were working as of the time we were there. We haven't received any report from outside Osogbo yet, but then we will be taking another round of a drive around the city, after we finish speaking with you.
Thank you, Brenda. Much about access and inclusivity. I want to know about the conduct of the electoral officers. What are you observing? Are they adhering to procedure? Also, when it comes to the security agencies, how are they interrelating with the voters? Are voters, do they feel safe? Do they feel comfortable? What have you observed on these grounds?
Let me start with the security agency. And I will say that we met police on ground at all the polling units that we went to this morning. In 2 polling units, we met 16 police officers in each of the 2. Then we got to the school, the Salvation School. The CP actually arrived with a truckload of police officers, including the police officers we had on ground. And what police, then only one polling unit that we saw 10 police officers, and they were very civil. I must commend them. Their behavior was so professional, and they could take complaints from us. For instance, I noticed that at the back of one of the queues was a woman with an infant strapped to her, and she did not know that she was in the vulnerable group that needed to be attended to early enough, that needed to get priority treatment. When I walked up to her and spoke to her, she told me she didn't know that. So I went straight to the police officer and reported that. And he immediately brought her to the front of the line, and she got accredited and she cast her vote and she left with her infant. So the police officers have been very civil, very professional so far at the 4 polling units that we visited already this morning. And in terms of access given to priority and vulnerable groups, I can say that they are very aware of what to do, and they are doing it. I told you earlier that we saw older people, senior citizens, who were there, and they had given them seats to sit down while they set up. Now that is something commendable, and they allow them to have their accreditation done first, and they voted before anybody. We also met somebody with visual impairment. He was led by an aide, and immediately they spotted him. They brought him to cast his vote before any other person. So in minutes, he was done.
Thank you very much, Brenda. Mr. Jake Ekpele, I expect that we have Mr. Jake Ekpele back with us, if I'm not mistaken. Please, could you indicate if you're with us? Unfortunately, we don't have him with us at this point. I was going to extend the same question to him regarding the conduct of the electorate. Well, maybe he is listening. When he does come back, we'll be asking him.
I think he's back.
Questions. But is he back now?
I think so.
Jacob Pele is back. Mr. Jacob Pele, thank you very much. I was asking Brenda regarding the conduct of the electoral offices. Now, to you, with everything that we've seen when it comes to inclusivity, when it comes to access, and also the conduct of the electoral offices currently, do you think that this makes for a healthy election condition come 2027? Are we working our way to a healthier election culture in Nigeria? Will this persist till after the elections for 2027 in January, do you think, Mr. Jacob Pele?
Well, Maximo, there's no doubt that as concerned as you are, I'm equally concerned. Seeing what is playing out in Osun, are they signposts to 2027? I will say yes. Hopefully, let's comment on the good part of the signposts. Early voter turnout. If it continues in this manner, then there's some hope for 2027. The civilized conduct of the security operatives, if it continues in this manner, there is hope for 2027. The management of crisis by INEC, because this would have thrown anybody into a quagmire. If INEC is able to up her game and are able to respond to issues like this in a timely manner, there is hope for 2027. But then again, let's not be too quick to conclude, because the early expectations in the electoral process like this is one, accreditation, timely deployment, logistic success in terms of how they manage the logistic arrangement. We're going into a critical aspect of the election, voting, making sure that voting comes to a close, and then collation at the early collection center, and then cascading up to the general collation center. At that point, we'll begin to see the true stress test of election management by election umpires. So I would say it's too close to call for now. Let's continue to observe the process as it plays out. At South Africa, we deployed 150 observers across specific polling units, and I repeat, specific polling units, not all the polling units, because we are guided by data science. We do have 25 sign language interpreters across specific polling units, and hopefully you can see that I do have one sign language interpreter assigned to the situation room here in Osun, and then she follows me around. Thanks to my team that is making sure that these resources are available. So I would say it's too early to conclude, but so far so good. We are happy with what we're seeing. We are happy with the conduct. And let's say that at the end of the day, we'll be in better position to decide what the outcome may look like going forward. But we'll watch. But also, it's also commendable here to talk about the inclusive media reportage. News Central taking the lead, Channel, AIT, everyone. There's been a very good coverage for the inclusivity of this election. And if this continues, the community of persons with disability will be happy that we are not forgotten in the entire process.
Mr. Pele.
Conclusively, I'm heading to meet with the National Commissioner in charge of this election, just to get his own take and to also give him on-the-spot assessment of our observation.
All right,
and
Mr.
where
Akpele.
there's issues, we'll point it out to him. Finally, Martino, it's important to also report here about our concern. Our concern is the welfare of security officers. The IGP did assure us, I was in the company of other leaders, that all the allowances have been paid. But I hope that is practical in the field. I want to make sure that these men and women that are putting their lives on the line, that their allowances are paid, their welfare is taken care of. I saw one or two of them eating akara boils by the wayside. That's not acceptable. They should be taken care of as much as they take care of us.
Yeah. Mr. Akpele, thank you very much for being concerned for more than just people living with disabilities, but also the welfare of the security agents, because, I mean, they are very, very important when it comes to the general outcome of things here, securing both the electorate, both the voters, the electorate and the voters, and also the materials that are used for these elections. That's well thought of. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you also for being with us for this conversation. We'll continue to come to you throughout the course of today. Even if we are ending our own session here, we have others who are coming after us.
Yes, but before we, say goodbye to all of this conversation, Brenda, I do have one more question for you, but let's go on a short break. When we return,
okay,
I'll talk to you. Stay with us.
While everything is going on well, the election is going peacefully. The INEC are doing their job. At the same time, the security people are attending where they go to parties that are one or two places where they want to cause trouble. The police are in charge. Things are going on. Well, I want to appeal to people that it is important that they need to conduct themselves and they need to vote peacefully. The security people has to be in charge. The INEC too, I think so far they have a criminal operation, and I want to believe that things will.
Welcome back. That was the APC candidate Bola Oyebamiji addressing the press after he cast his vote. I think I still have Brenda. Brenda, do I still have you here with us?
I'm sure we do. Do we still have Brenda?
Yes, we do. Awesome. So, Brenda, before we round up this conversation, before I hand you over to the next batch of anchors here on Breakfast on News Central, I wanted to ask you, what more can you say that you've seen so far? What more can you tell us?
Thank you very much. I would just like to talk about the other security officers that we met on ground. We didn't only just meet the police officers, we met persons from the correctional facility, we met NCDC, and we met from the fire department. And then at the school, at the Salvation School, we met personnel from the Red Cross who were here just in case anything happens to anybody, they can at least give first aid. And I thought that was impressive because in these political times, there can be tricky situations. So it shows that they were pretty much prepared for anything, and that's why they had other officers, other personnel also on ground there observing and watching for voters to vote and then leave peacefully.
Well, thank you so much, Brenda Awugwam, and of course, Mr. Ekpele, for joining us to have this conversation. We still have a few more bulletins, throughout the course of the day with our other anchors. Of course, I'm sure they will call on you to get more views as to how the election is going. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And that brings us to the end of this edition, before I say election, of News Central Breakfast Extra, but certainly not the end of our coverage. Osun Decides 2026 continues here on News Central throughout the day. Our teams remain on the ground across the state, tracking voter turnout, the conduct of the election, emerging development, and later the closing of polls and counting process. The big questions remain. Will the process remain peaceful? Will voters be allowed to freely choose? And will the final outcome reflect the will of the people, or are we going to go back to court? Stay with News Central for continuous coverage of Osun Decides 2026. From all of us here, including Mazino on Breakfast Extra.
But you forgot about me.
Thank you for joining us. Have a great day and keep watching News Central.
See you guys tomorrow.
Au revoir.
Bye.